This is 2 hours of pure car ball knowledge, starting with car noises that mean you're Cars make noise all the time, so sometimes it's hard to tell which noises are good and which noises are bad. These car noises get more and more expensive as the list goes on, so be sure to watch to the end. Number 1, light squeak while braking. You do not have carbon ceramic brakes. Your is just worn out. Go grab some brake pads and probably do the rotors while you're at it too. Not too hard of a job and your car will stop. Nice. Number 2, ticking engine. Lower your cortisol immediately. This one also isn't that bad, unlike the next one. You either have lifter tick, which just means you should go for a spirited drive, or maybe you need to top off your oil. Usually not a huge deal at all. Number 3, whining while accelerating. This one is not for the Hellcat drivers. You guys are fine. For everyone who doesn't have a supercharged car, you might want to worry about the whining just a tad. There are a few things that could be going on. First, you're broke and use a Bluetooth adapter. Second, it could be the transmission, because when these things need a fluid change, they'll let you know. But if it's making a whining noise, then you'll probably feel the other issues like slipping or delayed shifts and stuff. It could also be a belt. Be sure your power steering, alternator belt, and all the other ones aren't wearing out, because if they are, they'll kind of scream at you a bit and sound like a supercharger. If you want to ignore this, no worries. At least your car sounds like it's supercharged. Number 4, clicking while turning. Unless you're driving on a keyboard over the Logitech G29, you don't want to hear clicking while turning at all. I hate to be the one to break the news, but your CV joints might be cooked, especially if you're driving a front-wheel drive car or an all-wheel drive car. If your CV axle fails, then that sucks, man. I don't know what to say. So basically, be sure to check on the CV joints if you feel or hear a clicking noise while turning, or simply turn up the music and ignore the problem until it solves itself. This is my personal favorite option. Number 5, low humming at high speeds. You might want to sit down for this one. If your wheel bearing needs to be replaced, you're completely fried, dude. Not because it's insanely expensive or anything, but it's just such a pain in the ass to replace a wheel bearing. Holy shit. I pray the low humming you're hearing is just an exhaust leak or something. Like, this isn't insane by any means, especially if you're a seasoned mechanic, but it's just one of those things that sucks to do, you know? Like, if I'm gonna go out of my way to do all that and spend all that money, I'd at least want the car to be faster. But alas, sometimes you just need to make a wheel spin, I guess. That's a part of being a car guy. Number 6, rattling from under the car. This usually isn't detrimental at all, and usually it just means you're a shitty welder. If you hear a rattling noise under the car, it's most likely just a loose heat shield or maybe a worn out exhaust clamp or something. This issue is one of the less expensive ones, especially compared to the next, but it's still annoying nonetheless. I've had to deal with a rattling exhaust a lot. My car has 2 pipes that run parallel, and when I was modifying the exhaust, I accidentally made them go a bit too close to each other. That's how a few days of laying under the car started. I still feel the slag from the welder weighing down my lungs. Number 7, grinding brakes. You absolutely can't even play this one off as carbon ceramic brakes. Your shit is just at this point. Your brake pads are dust. What to do next? Get some new brake pads. Get some rotors as well and a fake hood scoop from aisle 5. If you drive on grinding brakes, you'd better say a prayer before you plan on stopping, especially if they were squeaking and then grinding. You're cooked. I feel like grinding brakes sound like that one Tombstone moving sound effect. Number 8, loud exhaust. Hear me out. If you want a loud exhaust, you absolutely have my permission. If you didn't do anything to your exhaust and it's loud, one of the following things may have happened. Option 1, your catalytic converters are gone and some dude named Owen has them laying in his trunk next to a cordless Sawzall. Option 2, maybe you drove over a rock or something that put a hole in your muffler. Not a huge deal, but it might sound like. Or option 3, you have an exhaust leak. Although there's an off chance that maybe your exhaust leak sounds good, that shit is definitely exhausting straight into the cabin air intake. If you're at a red light for too long and you have an exhaust leak, you're definitely gonna get faded. Not only is it bad for you to breathe exhaust, but also your car is just gonna deter the huzz, dude. You need to get that shit fixed immediately. And no, I'm not talking about lathering JB Weld on the hole or even using exhaust wrap. You just need a good old-fashioned welder. Just get the cheapest one at Harbor Freight and you'll be fine. Number 9, bouncing car syndrome. If your car feels like it's jumping when you go over a bump or any bullshit like that, you're definitely riding entirely on springs, dude. While it is doable, it just sucks. Don't expect to do any canyon carving with Cook Springs either. It's gonna feel like you're driving a land yacht. It's surprising how much of a difference nice shocks make. And while you're doing all that work down there, you might as well pick up a nice set of lowering springs or even upgrade to some coilovers. It makes it a lot more fun to drive the car. If you're just concerned about comfort though, just do the shocks. Number 10, hissing after you park. This one is just absolutely cooked. You probably have a coolant or vacuum leak. If it's a vacuum leak, you should probably just look at your idle to see if it's seeking at all, meaning the RPMs go up and down until it settles. It's easiest to find a vacuum leak with a smoke machine and just pump smoke into the air intake and look for leaks behind the MAF sensor. I made a smoke machine with a pickle jar, a sock, Diddy oil, and a bike pump. Let me know if you want to hear more about that because it actually worked. Number 11, clunk while shifting. This one just sucks, but it also opens up some fun opportunities. There's a pretty solid chance that your transmission needs some work, depending on the clunk severity, of course. Let's just say your transmission turned into metal glitter. Maybe it's a good time to swap to a DTC or even something more fun like a ZF 6-speed. I don't even know. Just swap a cool transmission in there and have fun. Number 12, high-pitched belt squeal. Number 13, exhaust popping. This one most likely doesn't apply to the BMW owners. A lot of people like pops and bangs and burbles, but dude, this one can actually be pretty bad if it's not intentional. Basically, your engine's timing is slow, so there's a bit of gas left over and it explodes, which makes that awesome noise that all the BMW kids love. If your car isn't tuned to do this or you don't have a modified exhaust, you should probably get it checked out. Number 14, knocking noise coming from the engine. I pray this isn't actually rod knock, but if it is, here's what to do first. Sign up for therapy, say it was really, really bad, and then walk to the liquor store. If your engine is knocking, you're most likely you'll have to rebuild or swap that bad boy. Maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe you can swap the engine with something better. I'm just trying to see the bright side of things though. This is just a terrible situation. Number 15, sudden loud bang. Same type of noise as when the universe was created or whatever. Hearing a sudden loud bang from the engine bay is far from ideal. It's probably just bad timing and like an engine backfire, but it could also just be like a belt snap or a blown radiator hose, a motor mount. It could be any of those things that just broke randomly. I'm not really an expert on random explosions though. Number 16, 15,000 RPM. This one's for the manual drivers. If you're showing off your quick shifting, pushing your car to its absolute limits, sometimes you can accidentally money shift from red line in third gear to purple line in second. If you actually money shift really badly, your can just explode on the spot. I'm talking like a chunk out of the engine block. You are absolutely cooked. If you do this to your car by accident, it's most likely gonna break. Chances are you're gonna need a new transmission too. I think the most profitable way to go about this is just begging the junkyard to take this car for at least $5. Number 17, rapid clicking while starting. This is probably the starter solenoid or starter motor. This isn't that bad, but it's really annoying. Replacing a starter can also be a pain in the ass depending on the car and the type of work area you have. It's not too expensive though, and your car isn't ruined. It just won't start for real. A grinding noise while trying to start is pretty similar, but it just means the little gear on the starter is worn out and not catching where it's supposed to. Fix your crap, twin. Number 18, extremely loud wind noise while driving. So from my professional diagnosis, you either need to roll up your windows or you don't have a windshield. Be sure to keep your mouth shut for the flies and put on your safety squints. Number 19, siren noises behind car while driving. For some reason, this noise only appears after you commit a traffic violation, but it's usually just safe to ignore it. Just drive faster, turn up the music, and it should eventually go away. Number 20, the worst noise of all, silence. If your car doesn't do at all, I don't even know what to say. Just check all the other basics. If it doesn't do at all, probably just bring it to LS Customs and they'll get it sorted. Silence is the absolute most scary thing that can happen to your car, and I pray it doesn't happen to you. Everybody loves to modify their cars, but 90% of the people that I know do it completely wrong. Today I'm going over 7 different builds so you can learn how to actually modify your car depending on what you want. If you're building a drift car, then there are 8 crucial steps you need to take to build an awesome sliding machine. And don't worry, I'm not talking about 500 horsepower big turbo drift missile bullshit. You just need something predictable, balanced, and relatively reliable. The first thing to look at would be your car's differential. If your car has an open diff, then let's take a step back real quick. Don't even try sliding that thing yet. The only person drifting a car with an open diff is going to be Ken Block. If you try drifting like this, one tire is going to be doing all the work while the other one is just watching. But you have a couple options here. If you have some bread, go for an LSD. If you don't, then it's time to lay down some welds. If you're trying to make a decent drift build, then get both wheels spinning or else. The next thing to worry about would be suspension. Let's be honest. Your 20-year-old shocks are more beat up than a Marketplace 240SX with 20 previous owners. If your car is bouncing through every corner, you're not going to be linking shit. When you're budgeting out this drift build, definitely set aside some extra cash for nice suspension. Nice coilovers are going to make a huge difference. That being said, you don't need anything too crazy like 3-way coilovers or some bullshit, but something in the mid-price range is going to be worthwhile. Just don't cheap out too much on coilovers because they're super important. While we're talking about suspension, you should definitely consider getting an angle kit. You don't need some Formula Drift NASA package, but more steering angle helps save bad entries and lets you hold a bigger angle without smacking into a tire barrier or a cement wall, better yet. Having a kit like this is super helpful for when you're starting out, so you have a little bit of extra room to correct your mistakes. There are other mods to help improve steering angle, like extended lower control arms or cut knuckles, so those options are worth looking into as well. The next mod that every drift car needs is a solid clutch. I'm gonna be honest, the stock clutch is probably not gonna work or last very long. When you're drifting, you're always gonna be kicking the clutch to get loose, especially with less horsepower. So upgrading to at least a stage 2 or performance clutch is definitely gonna be worth it. We also need to talk about cooling. Every new drifter ignores their car's cooling system until they're parked in the pits with steam pouring out like it's a vape convention. To avoid being that guy, upgrade your radiator and fans, make sure your intake temps are low, and maybe even throw in an oil cooler if you don't have one. The more cooling you have means the more track time you get. Drifting is abusive.
So fix it now.
After you get your cooling system figured out, maybe you should consider a hydraulic handbrake. This is actually a mod that I don't recommend, but I'm gonna throw it in here anyway. The hydraulic handbrake is almost like an oops I messed up I need to continue sliding button. A brake is for slowing down and it has no steez when it comes to drifting. But if you're new to drifting, you're gonna be pulling your handbrake anyway. And it's best not to snap your brake cable, so you might as well go with a hydraulic e-brake. It'll make it a lot easier since it will lock the wheels right away, and it takes very little effort to pull. That being said, hydros are for chuds, so it's kind of optional for a drift build. But something that I find mandatory is a bucket seat and steering wheel setup. If you're sliding around in your seat, grabbing onto the door panel every time you transition, that's not driving skill, that's just survival. Getting a bucket seat will have you planted in the car, and you won't even need to think about it anymore. You can put all of your focus into actually drifting the car instead of holding on for dear life. This is actually a huge mod. Last but definitely not least, the seat time mod. Before you buy the neon lug nuts and anime toe straps, you should probably spend your money on tires, gas, and event entries. The best mod for drifting is actually learning how to drift. It's pretty difficult to get good at, but not nearly as hard as rally driving. If you're building a rally car and the first things you bought were a shiny livery replica of the Audi Sport Quattro, a blow-off valve, and underglow, then we gotta restart real quick. Rally ain't no cars and coffee in the dirt. Rally is launching a car through the woods at irresponsible speeds, while rocks, potholes, mud, trees, and physics all try to kill you at once. Your car does not need to be flashy. It needs to be insanely durable and easy to drive. You're gonna have to follow these 8 steps to build this thing. Of course, we're gonna start with suspension, an absolute no-brainer here. This thing cannot be slammed on coilovers or stanced on washers. You're gonna need some solid suspension with good travel. When you're looking for rally suspension, here's what you're gonna need: inverted dampers, durable mounting ears, and the ability to adjust things like damping strength, ride height, camber, and caster. Basically just all that good stuff. Your car is going to be going over bumps, jumps, potholes, and you can't have super stiff suspension or else you're going to be airborne for half the race. The next thing you should invest in is a skid plate to protect your oil pan, transmission, differential, fuel tank, exhaust, or really anything important that the ground could touch. It would take one softball-sized rock to turn your oil pan into modern art. If this happens mid-race, you and your co-driver are going going to be going for a hike. Getting a piece of metal to cover these parts is a lot cheaper than replacing the parts most of the time. So it's definitely worth it. It doesn't really matter if the car doesn't stay on the track though. That's why you'll need to invest in a good set of tires. Good rally tires are surprisingly important. Gravel, snow, mud, whatever surface you're on, having the right tire for the job is crucial. If you bring street tires into rally, they're either blowing up or you're gonna spectate from a ditch. While you're getting your tires changed, you might as well pick up some mud flaps too. First of all, they look cool, but more importantly, they save your paint, keep debris down, and stop your car from getting sandblasted every time you drive. It's a functional reason to make the car look better, and it's likely that they're required in whatever event you're attending. More importantly, do you spend a lot of time on your phone? I need to put you on Tester Up. Tester Up lets you earn real money by testing apps. It's super simple. All you have to do is sign up, pick an app to test, then complete simple tasks like playing a game or answering survey questions. That's literally it. Also, you don't have to pay anything. It's completely free. You can choose which games you want to test and which surveys you want to answer. I saw this game that I wanted to test out. I just downloaded it, played it for a few minutes, and earned real money by sharing my feedback. It's really simple and a fun way to make some money. Everyone who signs up through my link gets a $5 sign-up bonus depending on where you live. I really like Tester Up because the payouts happen within 24 hours and go directly to your bank. Also, you can make up to $80 per app that you test, which is just insane. This app has a 4.2 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot and over 22 million users, so you know it's legit. There's constantly new things to do, so you'll definitely find a game that you already enjoy. Why not leave some feedback and earn some extra money? Download Tester Up for free right now by using my link in the description, the pinned comment, or by scanning the QR code on screen. Before you drive this thing for real, we should bulletproof the engine a bit. Rally cars work hard at all speeds. Not only will you be regularly hitting the limiter, but your car is also going to be covered in all sorts of elements. It's super important to have radiator protection, solid fans, clean airflow, and maybe even an oil cooler depending on the setup. Overheating 5 miles into a stage would be super embarrassing. I mentioned clean airflow, so let's talk about filtration for a minute. Clean airflow would come from a nice intake filter with sealed routing because keeping water and dirt out is mandatory. If your engine inhales some of the environment, that shit is locking up. Also, don't forget the cabin air filter because you don't want to be inhaling the environment either. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but having a roof scoop actually helps prevent dust from getting inside the car by pressuring the cabin. So maybe consider doing that. If you think it's hard to see with dust in the cabin, then try seeing with bad headlights. Driving 100 miles an hour through a forest at night is crazy, but doing it with stock headlights is psychotic. For a rally build, you definitely need to upgrade your lighting, or you're gonna end up in a tree. Make sure everything is wired up nicely so you don't go blind mid-race, and don't cheap out on lights too much. Remember the hydraulic e-brake I was hitting on earlier? Well, now is a time you might actually want one. I actually do recommend a hydro e-brake for this build because on a rally stage, it's not about if you will mess up, it's about when you're gonna mess up. A rally course typically isn't as forgiving as a drift track, so definitely make sure that brake is easy to grab when you need it. It's fair to say that the most important thing about a rally build is its reliability. So before you take this thing out, be sure to check up on the fluids, bushings, wheel bearings, brake lines, basically everything else. Rally exposes the weak parts of your car very quickly, so make sure you don't have many. Let's say you want to build a track car. If you're chasing big power numbers while building a track car, then you've got it all wrong. Track days are meant to be fun. It's all about driving your car hard and improving. Nobody cares what your car makes on a dyno when it's overheating and dripping fluids all over the parking lot. A big part of going fast on a track is being able to go slow, so you should probably upgrade your brakes. Not every car needs a brake upgrade, but if you're gonna whip your mom's SUV around a track for a couple hours, you're definitely gonna want to be able to stop eventually. Brake pads and rotors are important, but also upgrade your brake lines while you're at it. Your stock street pads were designed for stop and go traffic with the occasional Tesla brake check, not repeatedly going from 100 miles an hour down to 40. If your brake pedal goes soft after 2 laps, this is a massive issue, and your brakes are probably fading. But that's not as bad as going bald. I'm talking about tires. I know I keep mentioning tires, but I feel like most people don't understand how much of a difference they actually make, especially with a track build. Upgrading tires will completely transform the feel of your car more than most power mods ever will. With better tires, you get better grip, a shorter braking distance, you can accelerate faster, and you carry speed through the corners so nicely. If you're thinking about getting some nice rims, definitely put that money into tires instead. Those rims aren't going to look that great once they've been understeered into a barrier. The suspension setup for track cars is a lot different than it is for drift or rally. I feel like a lot of the reasonably priced, high quality coilovers are meant for track driving, which is nice. As well as coilovers, you can get some solid sway bars, which will make a huge difference. They don't change your car's vertical travel, but they keep the chassis from rolling through the corners. A bit of camber is good, but don't make that crap look weird. If you feel like you're on a roller coaster while you're driving, you're losing so much potential. Getting a bucket seat, figuring out a solid seating position, and proper steering wheel placement will make you that much better at driving. If you get comfortable in the car and don't feel like the car is controlling you, you're gonna shave a lot of time off your laps. Also, get some safety gear, dude. As you're improving, you're definitely gonna make some mistakes, and it's better to do that with a helmet than without. Most of the time, a track is gonna require that you have some safety things anyway, like a fire extinguisher, helmet, harness, tow hitch, and all that good stuff to keep you alive. So you might as well invest in it anyway. If your main motorsport is about arriving somewhere safely and comfortably, parking at an angle, and standing next to your engine bay with a matcha in hand, this build list is for you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with building a car strictly for meets, cruises, looking suspiciously clean in parking lots. No hate at all. Not every car needs to set lap records or be able to hit clutch kicks in an industrial loading zone. Some cars are just built to be cool to hear and look at. There are a lot of things that can go into a build like this, but the foundation for any good show car is a nice pair of shoes. Good fitment and a nice set of wheels can completely turn an average car into a neck breaker. Bad fitment kind of makes you look like a poser. Definitely figure out your ride height and wheels first. This isn't something that you'd have to worry about with any of the previous builds, but keeping a show car clean makes a huge difference. Consider grabbing yourself a detailing kit and some other cleaning products. Half of the battle at Cars and Coffee is paint condition. No one likes rusty, sunburnt hoods with paint flakes. Learn how to buff out all the small scratches and imperfections, and you're probably good to go. The next thing that makes a really good show car is a nice exhaust. Notice how I didn't say straight pipe. I'm talking about a tasteful exhaust that genuinely sounds good. If you're the trumpet pulling up to the meet, you're probably not going to get any respect, but you could probably make up for it with a really nice interior. Those are super important for builds like this. You're going to need a clean steering wheel, tasteful shift knob, sporty seats if they fit the build, and just a mint looking interior overall. If your headliner is sagging, you might actually get kicked out of the meet. People absolutely look inside your car when you walk away, so if the passenger seat is filled with McDonald's wrappers, empty energy drink cans, or other junk, you'll lose even more respect. Keep that thing clean, dude. Another important part of the interior is a sound system.
I call them the dogs. Listen to them bark.
You're gonna want to invest in the sound system a good bit. Having high quality audio with a nice head unit shows that you know what you're doing. Going with a brand like Sundown or JL for the subwoofer shows that you're not cheaping out and you know what's up. Upgrading the tweeters and other speakers is super important too. Bass is cool on its own, but it will not make up for shitty high notes. It's not too hard to swap or clean your headlights. Having clean headlights and taillights makes your car actually look that much better. If your shit is foggy and yellow, it makes the whole rest of the car look old. Sometimes, and this is a hard sometimes, ambient lighting inside the car can look cool, I guess, depending on how well you do it. I'm definitely not talking about TikTok shop RGB rope shit. I mean just like some nice interior lights. I don't know, you know what I mean. Clean your engine bay. Having a build without rusted out headers and loose wires everywhere is gonna clear the car parked next to you. If your junk looks all shiny and organized, people are gonna be drooling all over your car, I swear. Whenever people ask to see what's under the hood, you'll actually be confident enough to show them for once. The social mod is also pretty huge for this car scene. Learn how to talk to people and the rest will come naturally. If you pull up to a car meet and just sit in the corner on your phone, you're not gonna be able to learn shit about cars or meet new people. You should be complimenting other builds, trying your best not to rev bomb the parking lot, and possibly even smiling at people if you're feeling super brave. I don't know. Here's the harsh reality. At a car meet, no one is gonna have fond memories of the dude with the loudest exhaust. They're gonna remember the chill driver with a super clean build. If you're into this clean style of modifying cars, but aren't really into the over-the-top polishing bullshit, then maybe you just need to learn how to build a really clean daily driver. If you want to modify your daily, and the first thing you think of is to install coilovers, let me try to talk some sense into you. you. A daily driver has one main job. Start every morning, get you where you need to go, and make sure you don't hate owning it. It's pretty simple when you think about it. Somehow, a lot of people forget this and turn their commute into a punishment ritual. I may or may not be one of these people. As I was saying with the coilovers, suspension mods are going to be super noticeable in your daily. Honestly, the stock suspension is usually going to be good enough, but if you'd like a nicer looking ride height with a similar driving feel, lowering springs are probably the way to go for you. You could go with coilovers if you get some high quality comfortable ones, but trust me, if your car starts jumping over every crack in the road, you're gonna get tired of it eventually. If you don't get tired of it, your passengers will. We also need to talk about the maintenance mod. I know you wanted a catback exhaust and some awesome carbon fiber mirror caps, but if you're gonna modify your daily at all, you should make sure it's a really solid car before you do anything too crazy. So before you put straight cut gears and a big turbo on your daily driver, just think about that transmission noise on the 15th hour of a road trip. Cleaning, one of the most overlooked mods, guys. Keep your shit clean. If you're gonna throw all your garbage on the ground in the back, you should try cleaning it out when you get home. I'm not talking about insane detailing like with the show cars, but just keep your junk in order. Comfort is one of the most important parts of your daily driver, so here's some things you should consider to improve it. Try getting some legal tint installed by a professional. You could do it yourself, but it's low-key worth it to just have someone else do it to you so that shit doesn't bubble up. Better speakers are a game changer as well. You don't need anything too impressive to show off at a car meet or something, but I definitely think having some good bass and upgraded door speakers is worth it. If you can't drive, you could consider a backup camera as well. If your seats are uncomfortable, you could get some more sporty seats that hug you a little more, but also aren't actual racing bucket seats. If it's cold where you live, you could also get a remote start. Or if it's warm where you live, you could also get a remote start because they're cool anyway. If you have an older car, maybe consider ripping the interior out and installing some sound deadening. Having a quiet ride for the daily can be pretty nice. Make your car into something that you actually want to drive every day. These mods are ones that you would actually appreciate every time, not just once a month at a car meet. Try some tasteful exterior mods as well. Good light bulbs, restored headlights, a clean front windshield, maybe even some cool fog lights. Having a daily driver that allows you to see at nighttime is awesome. Having shitty headlights isn't really okay for any car, but especially not your daily driver, which you'll probably be driving through some rough weather and dark nights with. Now I want to talk about some fun mods for daily drivers. Getting a sport intake that's specifically designed for your car can be really nice. It's not going to make chassis twisting power or anything, but you might at least get better throttle response and cooler noises from the car. The exhaust can easily be f***ed up, so tread lightly when you're messing with this one. You can't really go wrong if you're just deleting or swapping the mufflers, but your daily can be almost unbearable if you make it sound like shit. This one really depends on your car, so do your research, but in my personal experience, I kind of regret putting catless headers on my car because the exhaust note just does not sound that cool at the low end anymore. In my opinion, cosmetic mods for a daily driver should be pretty minimal, meaning OEM plus, meaning just make the car look a little better than it did from the factory. Your first few mods probably shouldn't be anything that'll sacrifice comfort until you're ready to actually make this thing into a race car. If you don't care about any of this and would prefer no comfort mods with all power, try building a drag car. If you're building a drag car, your first thought is probably going to be about making big power. If you actually want to make some decent times, you're going to need a really good grip and an awesome transmission. Drag racing looks simple on the outside. It looks like they're just flooring it in a straight line, which is wrong. Sort of. Drag racing is about putting all of the power down as well as possible without turning your drivetrain into dust. I'm gonna say it again, tires. Drag radials, slicks, correct tire size, proper pressure, it all matters. Horsepower doesn't mean anything if it doesn't get put to the ground. Yeah, it's boring, but it's the truth, unfortunately. At least with a build like this, you can get some thick tires that are gonna look sick. The next thing you wanna think about is not breaking your shit. The stock driveline parts on most cars are good enough for a daily, but they don't love hard launches on sticky tires. Be sure to upgrade the differential, get some stronger axles, and a fatter drive shaft if you're making really big power. If you skip this step, expect a loud metallic noise to follow you until the finish line. As far as suspension goes, weight transfer really matters. You want the car to plant the tires, not squat weirdly in fishtail. So you should find some suspension that helps make this happen. The last thing you want is to be popping wheelies and catching air or some shit. Actually, the last thing you want want to be doing is blowing up. So be sure to upgrade the cooling system. Cooling a drag car is a bit different than other builds. A lot of drag cars run a compact radiator, but in some classes, they remove it entirely and rely on the cool down between races. You could also get an electric water pump so the car can cool down while the engine is off, which is huge for cooling down between runs. Switching to an electric fan is also pretty cool because the mechanical ones just rob a tiny bit of that precious horsepower. As far as the fuel system goes, it's super important because you want more power. You're gonna have to supply it with more fuel at once, which means upgraded injectors, upgraded fuel pump, stronger lines, high quality fuel, and probably consider building a fuel cell as well. Having a fuel cell means you can fill up enough for the race without adding too much weight. Definitely get this thing tuned as well because you need to have a pretty perfect air-fuel ratio. Weight reduction is very easy and essential to drag racing. You don't need some cushy seat bullshit while you're trying to make some good time. Take out all your trash, sound deadening, gut the interior, whatever it takes to make this car lighter. As far as safety goes, you should definitely have a helmet, good brakes, drive shaft loops, and somewhat light roll cage. A harness depending on the speed and rules, and maybe even a parachute if you're a freak and got motion like that. Fast cars need stopping plans. For a build like this, it's good to be taking note of what's going on as you're driving and staying consistent with your specs. You should be logging data, you should have a tire pressure routine, basically do all of the boring repeatable preps so you're not blowing your shit up when it comes down to it. If you'd like to build an off-road vehicle, definitely avoid jumping straight into the cosmetic mods. A lot of people will just get a light bar and a winch, and this build won't see anything more intense than the curb of the Starbucks drive-thru. Off-roading is not about looking capable, it's about actually getting through all the bullshit that gets thrown at you in nature. Go with all terrains if you're gonna do some city driving and off-roading. Use mud tires for that really sloppy stuff, and rugged terrains for the kind of in-betweens. Go for proper sizes, decent sidewalls, correct pressure, anything but street tires in the mud. Recovery gear is also super important. This is where beginners usually mess up. If you're on your way out to some cool trails, you don't want to get stuck out there. Be sure to bring a tow strap, some traction boards, a winch, and a JBL. Don't forget the JBL because off-roading would suck without some music. Eventually, you will get stuck. The best piece of recovery gear is another person in another vehicle, so be sure to install the friend mod. When you're off-roading, you don't need the biggest, baddest lift kit. Getting sensible lift with some quality shocks and springs makes total sense though. Some people lift their shit way too high and it just looks goofy without actually changing the ground clearance. Underbody protection is also really nice to have when you're off-roading. Ideally, you'll be doing some cool shit like crawling over some rocks or something, and you don't want to be worrying about every time your undercarriage scrapes a rock. Installing a skid plate and other armor under there is totally worth it. It's better than putting a hole in your oil pan at least. Getting lockers and other traction aids is really good for off-roading. You could upgrade to something like a locking diff, or maybe even have a limited slip differential. At least something that's gonna get more than one wheel spinning. It's a huge upgrade for when the terrain gets real. An air compressor for changing your tire pressure on the go is surprisingly helpful. Lower tire pressure can improve grip and also just makes the ride a little bit more comfortable. Don't forget to air them back up before driving on the road with all the boring normal cars though. As far as lighting an off-road build, it's pretty similar to Rally for the front end, but you can also toss a bunch of cool lights on the sides and shit for the sake of it. Seeing is key when you're off-roading, but just please don't be the dude who uses these lights on a normal road. Holy shit, that pisses me off. If you've done everything right, you will naturally have a sick looking off-roading build without all the LARPing. You also now have a free pass to shoot TikToks at the gas pump with your rig. Wheels, possibly the first human invention ever, and yet we still use them in our day-to-day lives. I think that's why people underestimate the beauty of good wheels and tires, because how can the first ever invention be any better than it was 1,000 years ago? Wheels and tires are very easy components to neglect if you don't understand the importance of them, because on the surface level, they seem to all do the same thing. Roll. And for the most part, you're right. You could drive on Steelies across the country, but for those who like driving for the enjoyment or the sport, it makes all the difference. Just imagine Jordan trying to dunk in flip-flops. Before I get into the different setups and put you on some crazy tire and wheel game, let me just catch you up with the basics so that things don't get confusing later. First, I'll talk about tires. Tires have all of those little numbers on the side. I'm sure you've seen these types of markings on tires before, and probably have no idea what they mean, but let me explain them. This letter right here stands for the type of car. In this case, it's passenger. That's why there's a P there. For a truck or something, it might be A/T for all terrain, but there's many other types. And then the first number, 205, that's for the tire's width in millimeters. The next number, 55, explains the size of the tire's sidewall, but not in millimeters because that would be way too simple. In this case, it actually means the tire wall is 55% of the tire's width. The tire is 55% of 205. So the second number is always dependent on the first one. If you had a tire that was 215/55, for example, then the sidewall would be larger than the 205/55 one. I don't know why they do that, but it works. The R stands for radial construction, which is the most common way that tires are made these days. 16 stands for the size of the inside of the tire. Pretty important to know if you want to get tires for your wheels. 91 stands for the tire's max weight. 91 is 1,356 pounds per tire. Then finally, the V is the tire's max speed rating. There's many other letters for speed rating, but V means the tire could comfortably handle 150 miles an hour. Oh, also there's usually markings explaining heat resistance, tread wear, and traction. For heat resistance, they're usually rated A through C. A is good heat resistance. That's all you have to know. Tread wear is your tire's longevity and stickiness. Having a tire up to a 200 rating means that they'll be good for only like 20,000 miles, but having a tire with 700 to 1,000 rating means they're good for like 80,000 plus miles. But keep in mind, the lower the number, the more sticky the tires will be. Finally, traction measures the tire's ability to stop in wet conditions, graded from C to AA. AA is the best. The max PSI is also listed on there somewhere, but I don't usually pay attention to that. Okay, now I'll briefly touch on wheel basics before we get into the good stuff. There's a few things to think about when you're getting wheels. The height, width, and offset are all important for the fitment and how the car handles. The lug pattern and the way that the wheels were made is important for strength. So height and width is pretty self-explanatory, but offset is a bit harder to understand. Imagine a line drawn on top of the wheel through the middle. This would be 0 offset. Moving the tire closer to the car would be positive offset, and moving it away from the car is negative offset. This is pretty important to keep in mind when you're buying wheels because you want your wheels to fit the car nicely and look badass. How the wheels are made is more important than you think. Steelies are the basicest of the basic wheels. They look bad and they're pretty heavy. Okay, to be fair, I've seen them look good in a few situations, but it's pretty rare. Cast wheels are a step up from Steelies. They're made by pouring aluminum into a wheel-shaped mold. If you're buying reps, then you're probably buying cast wheels. They're much more affordable to manufacture, and that's why the wheels are cheaper. They're not as strong as flow forming or forged, but better than Steelies, I suppose. Multi-piece wheels. These are the gangster wheels. There's 2-piece wheels, 3-piece wheels, more piece wheels. Anyway, these look great and can be made using the process that I was just talking about. Lug nuts or lug bolts? What in the world could they have to do with anything, right? Well, more lug nuts, more strength. That's about it. Have you ever wondered why rally cars can float across gravel like it's nothing? I can hardly run on gravel, let alone take a corner at 80 miles an hour comfortably. The setup that those cars are running can carve into the ground so nicely. They have lots of control while driving. You're more likely to break a rim than pop a tire. These poor wheels are getting sandblasted with rocks while you're cruising through the track, so that's why they break. Rally tires are so fucking fat that they can weigh like 60 pounds. Rally tires are generally pretty tall too. They have a very interesting tread pattern to help with cornering as well. Kind of like spits rocks out to the side or something. I don't really understand how it works, but it looks cool. Drag is quite the opposite. Not that kind of drag, this kind of drag. They have pizza cutters for front wheels, like very thin 17 by 4.5s in the front, which is insane. And then something crazy like 34.5 by 17 in the rear. What the fuck? A setup like this is on slicks, of course, to get as much grip on the track as they can. They look awesome. I swear, some drag cars look like the old bikes, but backwards. If you're watching this video right now instead of then you might need some budget car ball knowledge. Who doesn't want a cheap, awesome car? Doesn't sound very realistic, right? It feels like you can only choose 2 out of cheap, reliable, and fast. But luckily, there's some cars out there that almost check all 3 boxes. This is budget car ball knowledge. The 1995 to 2009 Subaru Outback XT or Legacy GTB. Guys, these cars are bangers! If you'd like to track your car, rally it, or even daily drive it, this thing will get it done. The interior is comfortable, and there's plenty of space inside for grabbing some bulky groceries. You might even be able to conquer a Costco run with one of these bad boys.
We're Costco guys. Of course we have a 2009 Subaru Outback XT.
Since these things don't use too much fuel, you're going to be driving them everywhere. The 2.5 liter flat 4 is pretty sweet. The Legacy GT makes a monstrous 265-ish horsepower and 250 foot-pound of torque, depending on the generation. The Outback XT makes lower but similar numbers. An awesome part about these engines is that they bring the center of gravity lower to the ground, which improves handling quite a lot. These cars will turn your local dirt roads into full-blown rally courses. These cars rip stock, but will drive even better with a suspension upgrade. Don't even worry about driving it too hard because the 5-speed manual gearbox is known for being incredibly durable. Even the less sportier versions of these cars will still rip. A good Subaru Outback or Legacy will set you back around $2,000 to $6,000. It's a kind of wide range, but there's a lot of cars out there. The Jeep Cherokee XJ, 1984 to 2001. Hell yeah, brother. If you like to get your hands dirty and you're always digging around in the mud, then the Jeep Cherokee XJ might be just the car for you. Arguably considered the first true SUV. This thing has a relatively light unibody chassis, an excellent 4-wheel drive system, and either a bulletproof 4-banger or a more favorable inline 6 putting out 190 horsepower and 255 foot-pounds of torque. Both of these engines are known to last around 300,000 miles. Well, that's with regular maintenance, of course. Don't just let this thing rot. The Jeep Cherokee XJ is capable of conquering any dirt road you throw at it, and capable of getting over a lot of crazy technical stuff. Also, they look so nice, holy moly. If you want to build this thing up for real and throw on some strong aftermarket parts or even a lift kit, don't worry, there's a big market for this stuff. These cars are a great platform for a sick off-roading setup, and honestly, these things look so nice for the price. Expect to find a working XJ on the market for around $2,500 to $5,000. Okay, next up, we have kind of a surprising one. People don't usually see this on the budget lists. The Honda Civic. I'm just fucking with you. Everybody knows the Honda Civic. The Honda Civic is a cult classic, an all-around reliable, fun, cheap car, and very moddable. These cars can do anything from gapping a Hellcat in a drag race to picking mushrooms off the side of your local backroad corner. Honda Civics kind of have a heroic history. These cars were born from an oil crisis in 1972, requiring a need for more fuel-efficient and reliable cars. Then bang! Just like that, Honda locked in real quick and made this shit. The Honda Civic carries a great racing background with its lightweight chassis, high-revving engines, and precise steering coming from Honda's Formula One experience. The modding scene for these cars is so popular that you'll probably come across an ad for some Civic parts just by scrolling through your Instagram homepage. Because of the popularity, swap kits, aftermarket parts, and mods are super easy to find and really cheap. This is probably one of the cheapest cars to find on this list, costing around $2,000 to $4,000. Whether you're looking to upgrade the fuck out of this car or enjoy a bone stock, it's a very, very, very solid choice. Okay, now we have another banger from Subaru. What do you know about the Subaru Forester? It is a fantastic shout for everything. Anything you can do to a car, you can do to a Forester. Fuck it, off-road this car, grab groceries in it, and of course go to the track in this thing. The Forester was built on an Impreza platform, which means it's got a very solid all-wheel drive system with that nice Subaru classic 50-50 split. And I believe they're mechanical, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's really cool. This thing is really great for rally and off-roading. Also, the parts are interchangeable with a lot of WRX parts if you want to upgrade. Subaru built the Forester with the idea of it being a tough SUV for people who actually go on adventures and do things, but with the drivability of a normal car. Subaru also made a sportier version of this car with a turbo, which is a little more expensive, but still possible for an affordable price, the Forester XT. With ground clearance of about 8 inches, these cars are surprisingly good at off-roading. I think one of the best parts about this car is its interior, with a very simple design and a very roomy feeling. It's hard to beat. The average price of an old running Forester is somewhere around $3,000 to $6,000. The Forester is definitely some ball knowledge. The Volvo 740 and 240. If you've watched my channel for more than a minute, you probably already know how great Volvo is. I love Volvos. Here's some crazy budget shouts. The 1987 to 1993 Volvo 240 and the 1987 to 1990 Volvo 740. Yes, sir. These things can take a head-on collision with like 6 or 7 Cybertrucks and not even have a scratch on them. Other than being built like bedrock, these things can get down. The 240 has a rear-wheel drive system, and the 740 has an all-wheel drive and two-wheel drive powered by the B230 FT or B230F. The B230 FT engine packs a humble 165 to 175 horsepower stock and an easy 300 horsepower with some plastic surgery. The B230F engine has 115 to 135 stock and around 200 to 250 with the forbidden snail setup, which is more than enough horsepower to get a Swedish teenager driving sideways. A great part about these cars is most parts are interchangeable. Yeah, Volvo pulled some weird Alabama cousin shit and reused a lot of parts across different cars. So luckily for us, parts are easier to find and a lot easier to install. You could probably find one of these cars for around $2,500 to $5,000 stock, and for just another $2,000 to $3,000, you can modify this bad boy to go from Swedish and boxy to speedish and foxy. Overall, these cars are a great, solid budget choice if you're looking to have fun sliding around and crashing into things. The 2000 Honda CR-V. Please hear me out on this one. The 1997 to 2001 Honda CR-V with the B20B or Z is the perfect sleeper car you can buy for cheap. They look funky and cool, they're super reliable, and you can easily throw a turbo on these engines. The B20B is a solid iron block engine that comes from the legendary B-Series family, which makes it compatible with a lot of B-Series parts. Big win! You could probably find a beat-up CR-V for around $1,000, but if you want to spoil yourself, maybe $2,000 for that nice interior. To make this thing as badass as I'm saying it could be, you're gonna need the following: a turbo kit, ECU, tune, map sensor, fuel pump, and injectors. Sounds like a whole lot of debt, right? No, bitch! You're only gonna be down like $3,000 to $4,000. This setup will probably have the engine at like 250 to 300 wheel horsepower comfortably and reliably, or 400 if you're ready to send a piston to the moon. Parts are readily available and cheap since it's a B-Series engine. This budget CR-V is an all-around fun car to drive. It can go anywhere, it looks reasonably cool, and yeah, twin, just get one already. Also, they have a table in the trunk, dude. And for camping purposes, the seats go all the way down very nicely, just so you know. Being a car guy does not mean you need to know everything about cars. That being said, there are definitely some car guy posers out there, and you might be one of them. Modifying cars backwards. Have you ever seen a cool car that just looks a little bit wrong? Like this thing will have nice wheels, good looking paint, tasteful cosmetic mods, but then actually no real performance mods. Like the wheels are cool, but then right behind the cool wheels you'll see some blown stock suspension with the shittiest worn out brakes. A real car guy would create a strong foundation to build the car off of. They'd start by bulletproofing the car by doing all of the routine maintenance and preventative mods. Then they'd improve the handling by doing suspension and brakes. At this point you can move on to power mods and finally cosmetics. If this process is done backwards, the car can come out looking super janky. We've all seen those 335i's that look completely clapped but go super fast in a straight line. Or those straight pipe G35s with a bunch of cosmetic mods but nothing to help the car stop or take a turn smoothly. This is not as annoying as the pay to win car guys though, holy shit. If you don't know shit about cars but claim to be a car guy because your parents bought you a stock M235i, you're cooked. Buying a nice car from the factory doesn't mean you're a fake car guy, but not really knowing shit about the car or how to fix it kind of does. I once knew a kid who bought an M4. I asked if he was gonna do anything to the exhaust, and he said he might do a cold air intake to make the V6 sound better. This dude did not know what he was talking about whatsoever. That shit isn't even a V6. If you want to spot a fake car guy without even talking to them, you just need to look at the cosmetics on the car. This is one of the easiest ways to spot a fake car guy. Dudes will actually just glue some bullshit to their car and call it a day. I'm talking about the fake tow hooks, shitty LED interior lights, and don't even get me started on the Amazon window louvers. All of these things that I just mentioned can occasionally look somewhat decent, but if a car looks relatively stock and just looks like it's been blinged out by AutoZone aisle 5, you know that dude's a fake car guy. I think there's kind of a dark triad when it comes to AutoZone mods. We've got the black ice little trees, fake plastic classic hood scoop, and you can't forget the blinged out license plate cover. It's usually the more universal mods that just look like shit most of the time. But universal mods can be nice. When it comes to building an exhaust, getting universal components can be really convenient. They're cheaper, easier to find, and there's a lot more reviews on these things. When it comes to other things, getting parts that are actually designed to fit your car is way better. I feel like it looks really goofy when people put universal cosmetics on their car, or even things like when the wheels fit multiple lug patterns. Car guys get a pass on that one because those wheels are just cheaper, but I think they look a little bit shitty compared to the wheels that fit only one lug pattern. Speaking of exhaust, you can tell if someone's a car guy or not from a mile away. If you hear a dude's exhaust before you see the car and it sounds like shit, you already know it's a fake car guy. Even if it is a really nice car and they've built it well otherwise, having a shit exhaust note kills the whole build. I understand that building a nice sounding exhaust can be super expensive, but honestly, just keep it stock until you can buy or build something that actually sounds awesome. Having a loud exhaust doesn't mean it's bad, but if the exhaust note is just super raspy or high pitched, chances are the dude just cut the whole thing off with a sawzall. A real car guy would either fork over the cash to have someone install or build a nice exhaust, or they would put the time into figuring out what actually sounds nice for their car and then stick some metal together to make it happen. 9 times out of 10, a nice exhaust note isn't insanely loud either. So the dudes hyping up a straight pipe on their Civic probably don't know what they're talking about at all. Just like the people yapping about stage mods. Oh my god, give me a break. Stage mods don't necessarily mean you're not a car guy by default. You can buy a stage 1 tune or whatever the hell from some companies and it's cool. But sometimes I'll be talking to some people that just slap a hot air intake on their car and drill a hole in the muffler and call it stage 1. All that means to me is that the car is a bit slower than stock and sounds like shit. The real stage mods still don't really make sense to me, but they can be cool. Like buying some bolt-ons for your car and then tuning with a stage 2 flash tune or whatever totally works. But I still think it's a bit weird when people say their car is like stage 2.9 or just make up some random shit. Maybe that's just me though, let me know. But we have to talk about buzzwords and dopamine talking. I'm always hearing E85, built motor, straight piped, LS swap. These are all words and phrases that people just toss around to sound like they know what they're talking about. Someone will say they have a built motor and they're just talking about new spark plugs and an oil change. Talking about LS swapping their clapped Honda Element in an afternoon for under $1,000. Also yapping about lowering a car. I had a dude once tell me he got really nice coilovers for $150 and it turned out it was the shittiest lowering springs on a set of blown shocks. How do you even go about buying something like that? I feel like some people just like to talk. Most of the time it looks a little bit like that one image. It's kind of like knowing everything about insane cars but nothing about enthusiast cars. Knowing exotic cars is totally a car guy thing, and you don't need to know every single enthusiast car, but only knowing about unattainable, popular, super expensive cars makes me kind of think you don't really know cars like that. But I think a big thing about being a real car guy is learning as much as you can about a more normal car and figuring out how to make it the best it can be. I think overcoming the challenges of your car being a piece of shit is very pivotal for a lot of people, and it's not something that you should miss out on. Staying up late using Google Translate on a German forum that hasn't been looked at in 15 years made me grow as a person, to say the least. A more obvious way to tell if someone knows cars or not is if they understand power numbers. If you think a car with less than 500 horsepower is slow, then I think it's time to drop the hobby. If you've ever been in a somewhat light sedan that makes over 300 horsepower, you know that one wrong move could land you in a ditch. That's a shit ton of power. To all the people that think anything under 500 horsepower is slow, you may have never been in a car in your entire life. 600 horsepower is enough to land you in jail for putting your foot on the pedal for just 1 second too long. I feel like the people talking about power numbers like this actually just don't have a license yet. Or if they do, they've never driven in the corners before. I think for a lot of people, it's fair to say that slower cars can be more fun. I might be talking out of my butt right now, but I feel like I have a lot more fun being able to push a car to its limits through the corners than I do with some super fast car. I can keep a slow car in its power band, push it to the red line, hear all the sounds, feel all the feelings, and it's awesome. With a dumb fast car, it feels like you're holding it back the whole time. It feels like you need to go illegal speeds to get what you paid for out of it. Something that I'm guilty of is automatically hating front wheel drive cars for the sake of it. Listen man, I'm not a fan of front wheel drive either, but you can't say a car is bad just because it's front wheel drive. There are some awesome front wheel drive cars, even if they're not as cool as a lot of rear wheel drive cars. cars, you can't say they're useless. Front-wheel drive cars are lighter, cheaper to build, and still super fun. They might not corner quite as nicely as rear-wheel drive, but you can't say you wouldn't drive an Integra Type R if you had the chance, or a Civic Type R for that matter. I like driving my R53 Mini a lot more than my BMW. It's got a nice suspension setup, it has a good amount of power, and this car completely tears up the back roads. You can't say the Golf GTI, Ford Focus ST, or even the Mazda Speed 3 are bad cars just because they're front-wheel drive. The V6 Honda Accord and Acura TSX are also awesome front-wheel drive cars and super popular because they're fun to drive. Again, front-wheel drive isn't my favorite, but the dudes who say a car is useless for being front-wheel drive just do not know what they're yapping about. We also have to talk about hating automatic cars by default. Don't get me wrong, automatic cars can feel super sloppy compared to manual, but some cars have great automatic transmissions and shouldn't be shamed for the sake of it. Usually older cars are cooler with manual transmissions, but almost all of the newer performance cars have awesome automatic transmissions that sound really good, shift faster, and feel super nice to drive. Let's say I somehow scrape together enough cash to get a Camaro ZL1. Best believe I'm gonna go with the 10-speed auto. It shifts faster than any human can, it launches harder, and it's just awesome. I understand the hate for older automatic transmissions though. Those things can be slop. My BMW feels awesome to drive, but the automatic transmission actually ruins the entire experience. I guess this one really depends on the car and the transmission, but some people talk about needing a manual transmission regardless of what the car is. Acting a fool. If someone's acting a fool while driving, even in a super nice car, you just know they're LARPing. A real car guy knows that there's a time and a place to push their cars to its limits. And the school zone on a Tuesday morning probably isn't the best place. The dudes who attend takeovers and just do some bullshit in traffic do not care about their cars whatsoever. Their dopamine receptors have just been completely fried, so they have to do some dumb shit like this to feel something. I'm not saying that car guys don't push their cars from time to time, but it's usually just like on an on-ramp or some quiet back roads, or best of all on a track or a private event. Someone who really knows and enjoys cars isn't going to be risking other people's lives, or even worse, their own car, just to get a little dopamine spike. I think when a fake car guy's colors truly shine is when something goes wrong. They'll be talking about the most niche power mods and stuff, but then they're completely stumped when they need to jumpstart the car. I'm not saying you need to be a mechanic to be considered a car guy, but it's just surprising how some people actually know how to install a turbo kit and tune the car, but not how to do an oil change. Talking about buying their first car. I was talking to someone the other day who wanted to buy their first car. They said it needed to be cheap, reliable, and fast. That's literally the first lesson for any car guy ever. This shit just does not exist. Talking about buying a Civic, converting it to all-wheel drive, and putting a massive eBay turbo on it, all while holding it down at McDonald's 2 days a week. These same guys will finally get a Civic and then just never touch it again because it turns out you can't just slap a turbo on any engine. Since you clicked this video, you're probably desperate for some good car mods. Well, don't worry, bro Chacho, cause I'll be going over some things you've never even thought of, and some shit you didn't even know was possible, all in an effort to help make your shitbox a rocket. Ball knowledge car mod number 1. Cutting off the end of the ground electrode on your spark plugs. This is actually some crazy ball knowledge. This sounds a little crazy, right? How could you cut off the tip of your electrode and actually help your car perform better? This is more of an old school tuner trick. The idea is that you get more exposure of the spark to air fuel mixture, allowing for a quicker burn time. This actually did help in older engines since they weren't designed as efficiently as new ones. Basically, you cut that curly thing right here so that the part that sparks is over on the corner thingy right here. This makes the spark sharper and awesomer. It's helpful with high boost and high compression engines since the combustion chamber is under more turbulence and not as chillaxed. But before you go cut the plugs on your N20 engine or something, just don't. Crap is engineered a lot better these days, so you'd be better off doing this mod on older engines only. Please, thank you. Ball knowledge car mod number 2. Shimming your oil pump to increase oil pressure. This is actually a pretty popular way to increase your oil pressure for free, or for like 25 cents, I guess, since most people use a quarter for this mod. It's some pretty high-tech shit. So basically, you put this coin under the spring of the oil pressure regulator. When you plop that coin there, it makes the the spring stiffer, which makes the oil pressure higher. Nice! So why do people do this? High blood pressure isn't great, but high oil pressure is. This mod is helpful if you're planning on abusing your engine in something like drifting or racing where RPMs are constantly in the high end. Having high oil pressure will create a better lubricating film between the components and hopefully extend their lives. Doing this mod is definitely risky, and a better option would be to buy a performance-oriented oil pump, but it's fine if you don't want to throw money into your engine. Well, I guess this is throwing money into your engine, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Ball knowledge car mod number 3. Turbo timers. I feel like turbo timers are underloved and not as popular as they should be. These are more useful in older cars like early 2000s and below, but they still deserve lots and lots of love. Basically, a turbo timer continues to run your engine for a set amount of time after you turn the car off, typically for a good like 1 to 3 minutes. But why would you want this when gasoline costs as much as liquid gold? What this does is it lets oil continue to circulate through the turbo to let it cool down. If you get home after a crazy drive and shut your car down right away, the turbo will still be crazy hot, and a lot of the time it cooks the oil inside of the turbo. This will create a carbon buildup, which shortens the life of the turbo. A lot of new turbos are water cooled, so this mod isn't as helpful in most new cars. Oil technology has also come a long way, so it's not as prone to cooking itself. While this doesn't happen as much in new cars, it's still a very worthwhile mod, and it is a bit of a pain in the ass to install, I'm just letting you know. But they're really cool. Ball knowledge car mod number 4, firing rings and copper head gaskets. Yeah! If you have these mods in your car, I already know you're a freak of nature, and the car you're driving is pushing crazy numbers. Firing rings and copper head gaskets are the perfect combination and almost always intended to be used together. When a firing ring is being applied to an engine block, a groove is cut around each cylinder and a steel firing ring is placed in each one, creating a metal-to-metal contact between the head and the block. The purpose of this is to prevent combustion pressure from blowing the head gasket apart. I'm looking at all of the Subaru owners right now. And adds another layer of protection, which is always good. Copper head gaskets are awesome because they can handle very high cylinder pressure since copper is so malleable. So these copper head gaskets create amazing seals for combustion and don't actually seal the water and oil passages. If your car has a firing ring and copper head gasket setup, you're probably pushing horsepower numbers in the thousands. Ball knowledge car mod number 5, adjustable cam gears. Having a clear timing cover with some adjustable cam gears poking out is a great way to show you know ball. People with adjustable cam gears know how to get every little bit of performance out of their engines and are low-key classy about it. You'll see a lot of these on RBs, JZs, EJs, BK and F series engines, you name it, this mod is super universal, as long as your car has an engine. The benefit of these adjustable cam gears is that it helps you slow or advance the timing. You can slide it slightly forward or slightly backwards. This is super helpful because not all engines are built the same. Whether you have different intakes or exhaust manifolds, it really won't matter because you'll be able to fine-tune the cam to do what your engine needs it to do. This mod really shows you know what's going on with the engine and you know how important little things can be. You're like a empath or something, I don't know. Ball knowledge car mod number 6, switching to a speed density map setup. When you switch to a manifold air pressure or intake air temp combo, then you're pretty much going from the kiddie pool to the big boy deep end. These mods show that you're getting really serious with your engine. Either you're throwing big turbos on your car and just need a more accurate way of reading your intake, or you're just looking for more reliable sensors that are going to be more accurate. The manifold air pressure sensor reads the air pressure inside of the manifold. Shocking, I know. And the intake air temperature sensor measures the intake air temperature. Also shocking. But when you combine these two, the ECU is able to calculate the total amount of air that's actually entering your engine and give you a proper air-fuel ratio. It does this with some weird equations. I don't know how it does it, but it does. If you add these sensors, you get a lot more freedom with your mods, allowing you to add bigger turbos, more boost, or larger injectors, since regular boring MAF sensors can limit airflow reading. Pretty much all heavily modded cars are going to be running a MAP or IAT sensor. So I'm basically saying if you want to be cool, then you need to have these things, dude. I don't have any of these things. mods. Car knowledge ball mod number 7, water/methanol injection. This mod is crazy cool ball knowledge, guys. Why would you want to inject water or water with methanol into your engine? Good question. When you inject water into your engine, you're taking all of that heat and energy that's in the air before the combustion cycle to convert the water into water vapor. Basically taking thermal energy out of your engine or something. This helps you run a more aggressive tune on your car. You can advance ignition with less risk of pre-detonation. Mega win. Okay, but why would you want to add methanol to the mix? Once that water is turned into water vapor, it's useless. You can't blow up water. But if you add methanol, creating a 50-50 mix, then you get a combustible cooling gas, which is way more efficient, blah, 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 way more power. But you don't actually have to add the methanol part. You can still just use the water and take away some of that heat energy. You usually put the injector for your water and methanol mix somewhere around the throttle body, most likely after it. But you're gonna find this system hooked up to someone's car who knows hella ball knowledge. Trust me, guys, this is awesome. Because you know what else is awesome? Car mod ball knowledge number 8, cut and shut knuckles. This mod is really only popular in the drifting scene. People take the stock knuckles off their car and cut the tie rod connectors off the knuckle and weld it below and backwards to where it was originally. And this actually does a lot more than you'd think. It'll reduce Ackerman by moving the tie rod pickup closer to the center of the wheel. Ackerman is essentially where the inside of the wheel turns more into a corner than the outside of the wheel. This is pretty common in road cars and race cars, where it's helpful to keep both of the wheels on their own radius arcs, since the inside wheel will be following a different arc than the outside wheel. It's just like math and I think it's easier if you just say the outside wheel follows a bigger circle and the inside wheel follows a smaller circle type of but when you're drifting, it's more helpful to have both wheels pointing in the same direction so that you know you're driving straight, since it's like you're driving straight at the front of the car but the back is like driving sideways or something. I don't know. Other than less Ackerman, this mod is a great way for more angle for cheap, which is essential for throwing some sick backies or just getting more angle in your drifts. You can get something like 50-degree or more angle for pretty much free if you have the correct tools. That's a steal. Another great benefit of moving the tie rod closer to the center of the steering axis is a faster steering response, which makes the car feel a lot more responsive when you're sliding. Super worth and crazy ball knowledge mod. Ball knowledge mod number 9, porting the head of your engine. If you port the head of your engine, you probably know some ball knowledge, meaning you're a race car driver or something. We know at this point. Doing this mod definitely means you have a spiritual understanding of how your car works and how small things like taking a little material off your head ports helps the engine. There's plenty of good reasons to port the head of your engine. Maybe you're just looking to clean up the casting flaws, or maybe you could be matching up an aftermarket intake or exhaust manifold so you don't have a lip between the two if they don't line up perfectly, or even just creating more space for airflow. A lot of these will probably benefit the engine, helping the turbo spool faster if you have one, faster engine response, even giving you cooler charge temps for compressed air if you have a turbocharger. Porting your engine can be super hard and is super easy to mess up. So if you have a ported engine, you definitely have extreme ball knowledge. This was my list on ball knowledge car mods. Let me know if I missed any. Thanks, G. Let me put you on some of the most insane BMW game ever, starting with the M50, M52, and M54 engines. The E34, E36, E39, E46, Z3, early X5s, basically anything BMW put these engines in them. These engines are crazy. There's a good reason. They're that good. Okay, first of all, these engines are smooth. At 6,000 RPM, you can still like set your beer on the dash and it will not spill. Because BMW is the inline six company. They know exactly what they're doing. In short, these cars are reliable enough to daily, but fun enough to step on the gas pretty hard, and definitely simple enough to fix them. They're pretty reliable, but like if you need to fix them, they're a very straightforward engine. You can boost these engines for like $1,000 on eBay. They might blow up though. Unlike the N52, the BMW N52 B30 is the perfect inline six with no boost that BMW made. While it does not have a dipstick, it is a very, very reliable engine. It's kind of like the little brother to the N54. But let's be honest, it's kind of the older brother because it's humble, it's cool, it doesn't have turbos, and it's super reliable. Like, I mean, you want to just hold the gas down for fun? Do it. You can just bounce off the rev limiter. This thing's going to drive you home. You're never going to get stranded with an N52. But it's very slow. I mean, like, it is real. It's a very slow engine. I mean, stock, I think they make like 230 horsepower. I brought my N52 up to about 270. It's still pretty slow. That's why you'd get an N54. The N54 is bullshit. You know, the twin turbo version of the N52 has a cast iron block, but it still blows up a lot more than the N52. If you want the project car of all time, get the N54. Super tunable car, but it's gonna blow up. The next car, I almost don't even want to put you on it because I kind of want to buy one for myself. It's the BMW 335D. It's a perfect mix between the N54 and the N52 with the miles per gallon of a Prius. At 40 miles a gallon, 270 horsepower stock in a diesel BMW. Once you do an EGR delete, you're gonna get 350 horsepower with a tune, of course. The most reliable, most comfortable, most coolest sounding BMW ever. Do I hear Optimus Prime hauling ass down the I-5, or is that just a BMW 335D? These things sound insane. Why don't more people know about this car? This car is f***ing awesome. So let's say you want everything from a BMW 335D, except for the space. They are very small cars. Even though the E90 is a sports sedan, it's pretty cramped. And that's why you get the E70. The BMW E70 chassis is the SUV version of the E90s. And it comes with the 335D version. If for some reason you have a family of 5, like by accident or something, well, this is the perfect car for you. So the E70 doesn't only come in the diesel version. It also comes with the X550i, or one of the options is the X550. This engine is so unreliable that I'd suggest getting an N54 before you get one of these. But like at the same time, it's making like 400 horsepower stock. The N63, I believe. N63? Yeah, might have to double check that. The BMW E70 X550i is crazy. Massive car, 400 and something horsepower stock. This thing's pretty sweet. They look pretty cool too. I think the front looks kind of buns, but the back is awesome. They're really big, they're really good looking, especially for a soccer mom car. I'd say one of the practical elements of it is that fat people can sit in it. Okay, but let's say you want the space of the SUV, but you want the sportiness and the size of the sedan. That's where you get a wagon. Unfortunately, the US has kind of f***ed us. They don't have many wagons to offer from BMW, just the slower ones. Like the BMW E91 comes with the N52 engine. E34 Touring comes with the M50 or M52 engine. There's options out there. They're just not that great. Maybe it's worth doing an engine swap. One of the greatest things about owning a BMW is the BMW has some of the best stock rims that you can get. The M Parallels, the Style 65 as well from the E39 M5. There's a BMW Style 5 BBS RC, BMW Style 32s. I mean, you get the idea. BMW has some awesome wheels to choose from. I want to put you on the craziest BMW wheel game as well. BMW sells OEM spinners. Well, not spinners, just like center caps that float. They're badass. I think another important thing to touch on with BMWs is they all sound good with a muffler delete or just a modified exhaust. Like if you look at an Infiniti G35, for example, it just sounds like shit when you modify the exhaust. But when you cut the muffler off of almost any BMW, it just sounds amazing. I know this doesn't really have any correlation to what I was just talking about, but the BMW E28 looks so fucking cool. The 633 CSI or the 850 CSI as well, like Jesus Christ. BMW just knows exactly what they're doing. But I gotta be honest, BMW absolutely fucked up once. It was the BMW i3, I believe. Holy shit. I think another thing to consider is that BMW owns Mini Cooper, and they produced with Chrysler the R53 Mini, a 4-cylinder supercharged Mini Cooper, and it comes with a 6-speed transmission. F***ing cool, man. It's fun. Now, originally I was not going to touch on these cars. I think the BMW 328i from like 2013, it's cool. I mean, the N20 engines sound okay. They're just kind of bad. Like they're 4 cylinders, they're turbo. You might as well just get a Subaru or something if you want a 4-cylinder turbo. If you're getting a BMW, you have to get a 6-cylinder engine. I'm just saying, like that's what they're known for. That's what you should get. Get a B58. I'm sure if you know anything about BMWs, you probably know about the B58 already. I mean, say it with me now. Downpipe and a tune. Downpipe and a tune. These things just download power. You just get sent an email, 150 horsepower. Like, what the fuck? Do you know any other cars that do that? Or engines, I mean? Like, yeah, get a 340i, 440i. just a f***ing M Light. So BMW's xDrive is their all-wheel drive system, and although it might not be as good as Audi's Quattro, it's like still really good. And it has a really good bias as well, so it's like 40% of the power is in the front and 60s in the back. But what's even better is there's an app called xDelete. The app costs like $150. You download the app, you get a license, and then you can just upload xDelete, and you can like customize how much xDrive you have. You can also make it all rear-wheel drive if you feel like doing some donuts or something. I think if you're gonna lower your car, I definitely would suggest lowering your BMW. They have so much space in the fenders. You can get just H&R Sport Springs. It's like totally great ride height and it feels comfortable. If you want a more stiff ride, you can definitely get some BC Racing coilovers. Bilstein definitely makes some good ones as well. I think one of the more important things that I want to touch on from this is that there's actually like a mini fridge in your center console. I was at the gas pump the other day, feeling sad that I have to pump premium into my car, and I was looking at the options on the gas pump. Of course, there was 87 and 89 and 91, and then there was diesel and E85, and there's just so many other options that it got me thinking, what is the best fuel? Well, the most popular fuel is 87 octane gasoline. Gasoline is made by sucking some crude oil out of the damn earth, transporting that junk to a refinery, distilling it, cracking it, yeah, you heard me correctly, treating it and blending it, and then sending it to this dude. Society loves this junk. The USA spends over $1.5 billion on gas every day. In my opinion, the worst fuel is electricity. It's not that terrible, but it just pisses me off. I know the instant torque is cool when you're driving, but I would be so pissed off if I had to wait for 45 minutes in the middle of nowhere during a road trip to charge my car. Also, no noise coming out of the car while driving would feel so weird. Electric cars are kind of sketchy in the cold too. Like those batteries drain out so much faster when you're driving through a snowy mountain pass or something. So why is gasoline the most popular? Is it because it's the best? Is it because it's the most convenient? Is it the cheapest? First, I want to talk about diesel. Diesel is my favorite because it usually ends up being cheaper than gas. You'll spend more money up front, but diesel gets much better range. And diesel engines usually sound cool as shit. A lot of people think of semi-trucks or other big long journey vehicles when they think of diesel, but there are so many regular diesel car options out there too. The Volkswagen TDIs, the Mercedes OM606 and OM617, the BMW M57 or N57. The list goes on. There's a lot of cool European diesel engines that will go in regular ass cars. A non-hybrid example is the BMW 335D with the M57 engine. It gets like 45 miles a gallon with an EGR delete, and they make really good torque and horsepower. So why don't people use diesel all the time? It seems like better miles per gallon, usually more reliable, and they sound as cool as crud. Well, unfortunately, diesel cars are just clunkier, to put it simply. They don't drive quite as smoothly as a higher revving gasoline engine, and they have more complex parts like turbos, intercoolers, glow plugs, and all the other diesel bullshit. So there just isn't as big of a market for the diesel daily drivers. So gas is the better option for a lot of people. McDonald's French fry oil. Lots of people try running old diesel cars on used cooking oil just for fun, but one of the funniest is a car fueled specifically with McDonald's fryer oil. An upside to this is it smells like French fries. Downside, it smells like French fries all the time. It makes me wonder what these fries do to my guts. But is gasoline better than hydrogen? Sounds futuristic, right? But they're real. Hydrogen-powered cars are shitty as though. Definitely worse than electric cars, so yeah, bad. They're too new to be good, and there's very few filling stations for hydrogen-powered cars. They're very inefficient too, sadly. Speaking of inefficient, grass clipping power. For all the landscapers out there, I think I've just found a solution to all of your problems. Hear me out. You can gasify almost any plant, right? So theoretically, a lawnmower bag could be a fuel tank, right? I mean, you'd need a ton of grass to power it, but I might have to patent this revolutionary lawnmower invention, because as you're mowing the grass, you're powering yourself to mow more grass, which is basically freaking like something. What's that called? Is this an example of perpetual motion? Let me know in the comments. E85. This is a cool one. E85 makes gasoline seem like diesel. It has a higher octane, it's kind of hard to come across, and it's a really great option if you're trying to juice a lot of power out of your car. But I'd personally stick to gasoline unless I was building a race car, because there aren't that many E85 pumps, or at least not as many as gasoline, and it burns like quite a bit faster than gas. And it's more expensive, so it's just a race car specific in my opinion. Coffee grounds. Yes, this is real. Some weird British people once tried to run a modded Volkswagen on coffee grounds, and it worked. What the fuck? This thing used about 56 espressos per mile, making it the world's least economical caffeine habit. Use diapers. Diapers contain a material that can be gasified into a burnable fuel. A Japanese company called Superfaiths Incorporated explored the diaper to fuel process, but it was just too gross. So yeah, don't stick a diaper in your gas tank. Still not as bad as electric though.
Make sure to subscribe to Win.
LPG. Have you ever heard of this shit? Let me put you on. Liquefied petroleum gas is like the vegetarian gasoline. It's basically just what you would use for cooking or heating water, but you can actually power a car with this junk too. It's cheaper and cleaner than diesel and gasoline, and it can power a car for a pretty good amount of time. Like the Volkswagen TGI gets around 40 miles a gallon average running off LPG. Unfortunately, its range isn't quite as good as gas or diesel, but the cost per mile is usually less. So why not use LPG over gasoline? Because hardly anyone sells this shit. These cars don't get amazing range, and it's hard to find an LPG gas station. Seems like a good option for city driving or something, but it's not better than gasoline yet. So let's say I'm sick of basically paying a subscription for my car. All of that money to buy the car up front, just to need to spend another $200 every month for gas. Let's talk about solar powered cars. Electric cars, except cool. You might look a little fruity driving around with a massive solar panel on top of your car, but at least you're saving money, right? If you have an electric car in the first place, your public image was already out the window. So why not just throw a massive solar panel on top? Actually, there's a good reason not to. Because solar panels aren't powerful enough to power a car yet. It would be super expensive to install, and your car would only charge for 6 months out of the year when the sun is out. Seems like something that might be cool one day. Biofuel. Biofuel is the vegan gasoline. There's bioethanol, which is used to make E85, biodiesel, which is basically the same as diesel but healthier for the earth, I guess, biogas, which turns food waste into gas, and some other vegan options. Why is this not a viable option over gasoline? Because biodiesel and bioethanol could potentially lead to food prices increasing. Since these fuels are made out of vegetable oils, they'd have to just produce so much more vegetable oil, and shit would just get expensive, okay? Biogas isn't very efficient, and all of the waste that it's made from needs to be transported and stored, which ends up taking a lot of energy. Are you out of gas and desperately need to take a shit? This might be a two birds with one stone type of situation if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Anaerobic digesters can turn into biogas, which can power engines. Fun fact, there's a car called the BioBug that runs on sewage in the UK. Natural gas, the OG gasoline. This is awesome, except it's not. It makes lower emissions, it's very efficient, there's a ton of this stuff, and it can be used for almost anything. Awesome, right? Nope, it's not renewable. The way it's mined contaminates water and stuff, and this junk needs to be delivered through pipelines, which is super expensive. The badass fuel that got away. Pork power. I'm not trying to sound like a chemistry teacher or anything with all of these amazing alternative solutions to gasoline, but bacon grease is pretty legit. This stuff can be converted into biodiesel, and there have been a lot of cars powered by this junk. Just like the McDonald's fries, it would probably smell really good, but you'd seem fat as shit. Like you're just driving around and the smell of bacon stains your path. Everywhere you go in your car, bacon. Nuclear power is such a cool idea because it's so efficient and could power a car for so long. Like the Ford Nucleon concept car. It would have been powered by a small nuclear reactor that would convert the nuclear energy into electricity. It sounds like something out of a cartoon or maybe Oppenheimer, but it seems cool to me, I don't know. People are just too scared of radiation or whatever. Man, the freak up, dude. Just walk it off or something. My personal favorite. Beer. Yes. If you're on a camping trip or something and run out of gas, don't start drinking your beer. Give your car a sip. Okay, maybe not beer because it's a bit too watery, but some liquors like vodka, rum, whiskey, they could all be used to power your car for a little while if you're stuck somewhere. Is this the real German engineering that we've all been hearing about? Out of these options, I see why gasoline is still the most popular. I think my favorite fuel is still diesel just because the noises that diesel. From Japan's Supras and Germany's BMWs to India's... Which country actually has the best cars? Italy. Yeah, Ferrari, Lamborghini, blah blah. Fuck off. It's Fiat time. The Italian Mini Cooper. It's slow as crud, unless we're talking about corners. That's where these bad boys shine. The Fiat 500 is ugly as slow as but can take a turn like it's on rails. So yeah, obviously Fiat isn't the best brand from Italy. We've got Ferrari, of course, making bangers like the F40, the 250 GTO, the 812 Superfast, and just way too many other cars to list. But I'm not gonna give them the crown just yet because we can't forget about Pagani. I also can't forget about Alfa Romeo with the Italian BMWs. This country is a tough one. I'm gonna give it to Ferrari, even though they're an asshole brand for not letting people modify their cars. Still think they're the best cars that Italy has made. Canada's cars suck. I'm gonna give the best brand award to this thing because of the T-Rex. It's time for some freedom! The USA produces the most badass eagle-screeching, gun-shooting, gas-guzzling cars of all time. I'm not talking about the Cybertruck though. And dude, the US knows ball. Like the Cadillac CTS-V wagon, that shit's dope. Also, the 2005 Ford GT was an instant American classic. The Dodge Viper scares me, and Corvettes are pure badassery. Honestly, I didn't used to love Corvettes, but then I helped my friend work on a C4 and it made me understand the hype. Those cars are pretty freaking raw and sendy. Why the hell do American cars make you sit so far back though? When I sit in one, I feel like I could roll the window down and touch the back wheel. Maybe that's why they have such a bad reputation for handling, but a really good reputation for looking fucking awesome. Hell yeah, brother. I personally think the American car brand battle is between Ford and Chevy. That's coming from a non-American car enthusiast, so take that with a grain of To ease your mind, I'll give the crown to Ford for now because the Raptor R is dope and the old F-250s are really cool, and the 3rd generation Ford Ranger.
Now let's focus on Europe for a little bit, since they got some crazy shit you might not know about.
Turkey dropped the TOG T10X, which looks super boring to me and has a terrible interior, but I just really like saying TOG. So that's definitely a point. What the f is an Andal Bokek? The United Kingdom. While they do have some interesting food choices and design choices when it comes to cars, the UK definitely has dropped some heat. When I say interesting design choices, I'm just talking about any car from Reliant and the City Rover. Yuck! Okay, that being said, the UK dropped McLaren, Aston Martin, Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, Lotus, and like a shit ton of other bangers. Rolls-Royce has the Phantom, of course, which is just peak luxury. And the Aston Martin with the DBS Superleggera. I love the brap noise that these things make. Jaguar dropped the Shaguar, which is Austin Powers' daily. I'm kidding, the Jaguar F-Type R is a mega Jag win. And Lotus made the Fox body, Carlton, which looks freaking cool. And oh yeah, the McLaren F1. Okay, out of these, the best brand from the UK is going to Mini. Germany. Germany. What a great country. The nature, the beer, the pretzels, it's all amazing. But all of those beautiful things mean absolutely nothing compared to their cars. And holy shit, these Germans can drive them however fast they want. It's just so unfair. So what are Germany's best cars? The Mercedes 190e is such a beautiful car. Mercedes actually crafted the most exquisite looking car when they made the 190e. Just look at this thing, right? As a BMW Glazer, I think these things look nicer than E30s. Also, fun fact about the 190e, some trims had self-leveling rear suspension, so that's just badass, I guess. This is gonna sound like an absolute generic cornball opinion, but the Porsche 911 GT3 RS is such a good car from Germany. I can't help but give it a spot in the top 3 best cars from Germany. You already know all about it since it's so popular, so I'll move on to my next pick. Okay, this one might come as a bit of a shock to you. No, I'm just messing with you. It's the BMW E46 M3. Beautiful looking car, raw driving experience, and such a cool engine. 333 horsepower from that straight 6, probably feels so good to drive. Guys, can you please spare $1 so I can get one of these, please? I'm gonna give Germany's best brand to Porsche. Porsche knows how to make some good damn cars.
Bonus round!
Brazil also has a super cool and weird car community. They have so many front-wheel drive cars that most people lift the back for better traction. I think it's cool that they have such a strong underground car community, even though they're kind of set back by having so many front-wheel drive cars. That being said, I think the best cars that this country has ever produced are all rear-wheel drive. The Chevrolet Opala SS. This thing just looks like any other American muscle car, but it's Brazilian, so I guess that's cool. The Volkswagen SP2 is way too cool looking. I really like the stance and the headlights. Chevy made the Puma GTB in Brazil, which is also awesome looking. I think it again looks like any other American muscle car, but with a little bit of Brazilian swaz. I'm gonna give Volkswagen the best brand award for Brazil. France. Oh, bonjour, je m'appelle Gassi. Yeah, the French don't really have Jacques shit to offer. I'm kidding, they made Bugatti. I've talked a lot about Bugattis in my best of every cylinder video because as you probably know, these cars have insane engines and they look bad freaking ass too. Also, Peugeot is super cool. They made some of the best hot hatches like the 205 GTI. Looks just like a French VW in my opinion and packs a pretty solid punch. And you cannot forget about Alpine. The A110 looks so mean. I don't know what to think of the fog lights on the newer models, but they look badass on the old one. They don't make dumb power, but they're such light cars that you don't really need all that. France, the best car from your country is not Renault, even though Renault made the Celio V6. They just fucked up so badly with the Avantime that I'm not even gonna consider them the best car brand. It's gonna be Bugatti, right? I don't know who else it would go to. Sweden! Yes! It's time for some beautiful brands to be mentioned. Whenever I think of hooning around in the snow, I think of Swedish cars. To all the Subaru dudes, spare your comment. I know you exist too. But anyway, these Swedish people know how to make some super safe and super cool looking cars. Although they up the Saab 7-9X, Saab also made some sweet cars. The 900 Turbo, for example, was a sweet ride. But Saab, I can't give you guys a crown, sadly. If your cars were that good, then maybe they'd still exist. But I'll toss you guys a participation award for that Aero wagon. Volvo can have my children. Volvo is just such a cool brand, and they make a shit ton of cool cars. The 850R, the V70R, the S60R, and of course, all the variations of the 240. Volvo just knows how to do it. But what do you think? Is Volvo above Koenigsegg? Dude, the Koenigsegg Agera RS is just like, what the fuck were these Swedish dudes snorting? Adderall? Fentanyl? Yeah, this shit is just like peak. If you've got one of these, you might as well just drive it for a bit, then die. You finish a campaign. Obviously, Koenigsegg makes faster, cooler, and more expensive cars, but that's not a good reason to put it above Volvo in my opinion. I'm gonna toss Volvo the crown for Sweden, but feel free to argue with me in the comments because I don't know how nicely that decision sits with me.
Wow, we've been through a lot of major countries already, but we still haven't even touched on places like Japan or Egypt. Wait, what cars does Egypt even make?
Egypt. Yikes.
Wow, that was ass. Subscribe so you don't have to drive that car, twin.
Australia. Australia has some of the most weird and interesting car communities out of all of these countries, and it's awesome. Have you seen those burnout competitions? Ford Australia used to make the Ford Barra engine, which is basically an Australian 2J, and it is awesome. You can find this engine on some of the Ford Falcons and some variations of the Ford Territory. That's definitely a point for Ford. The Holden GTS makes way more power than it should, and the Holden Monaro CV8 looks so nice. Ah! The Proton Jumbuck sucks, so Proton definitely isn't getting the crown. Between Holden and Ford, I'm gonna give it to Holden just because I like the look of the CV8. Oh shit, but I also like the sound of the Barra engines. Maybe I'll just give the win to Ford because of the Capri Turbo being badass, so it's gonna go to Ford again. India. Well, these cars are definitely something, like the Riva G-Wiz. These dudes actually named a fucking car G-Wiz. Well, anyway, there's a few Indian bangers at least. Tata makes some cool cars like the Tata Safari. Looks kind of like a Land Cruiser in my opinion, so that's gonna give Tata the crown for Indian. Let me know if India made a better car than the Tata Safari because that's the coolest one in my opinion.
Now let's see what Asia has going on.
Vietnam. Unfortunately, Vietnam doesn't really have anything cool as far as cars go. A company called VinFast basically dominates the market, so I'll give them the crown. Japan. Japan is historically the most badass country as far as cars go, according to me. You know that one dude, Smokey something? That dude is so badass.
Man, I'm finna whip this hoe.
And all those other guys too. Japan has produced some insane cars like the Toyota Supra, the R34 Skyline, the Honda NSX. Japan is pretty hard to beat. But you know what else is hard to beat? Making a car shittier than the Mitsubishi Mirage. This thing definitely docks a point from Japan. Luckily, Mitsubishi is cool otherwise. They made the Lancer Evo, the Eclipse, and some other fire shark. They made Subaru, which is cool, Toyota, which is a classic, Lexus, which is just Toyota but cooler, Mazda, Honda, Acura, Sushi, Nissan Infiniti, mini trucks. One day I will own enough property to drive a mini truck on it and haul my mini bike on the mini truck. I love Japan. I'm gonna have to give the best brand from Japan to Toyota. Malaysia, the Proton Satria GTI is so sweet looking. The front lip, the headlights, the hatchbackness, the dual exhaust. This thing looks sweet, and people mod the shit out of these cars. The Bufori Geneva is exactly the car I would drive if I became an evil villain. Peruta makes cars so boring that I'm gonna give Proton the #1 spot because of the Satria GTI. China makes some weird cars. The Landwind X7 is just a Range Rover clone. It's such a weird car. A Chinese company called NIO makes a cool futuristic looking car called the EP9. I like the way it looks on the outside since it's just so over the top, but I don't like the interior at all. There's no reason to have all those screens. The BYD Seal looks boring as shit, and the Xpeng P7 also looks boring as shit, so I guess the winner by default is NIO. Indonesia. I mess with the Datsun Teras, but otherwise I'm not interested in Indonesia's cars, so South Korea. The Kia boys would be nothing without South Korea. South Korea makes the absolute best NPC cars ever. Kias, Hyundais, and I guess Genesis is cool even though it's still a Hyundai. South Korea is trying to dig themselves out of their car history by dropping the Kia Stinger and the Hyundai N thingy. These cars are an upgrade from the horseshit cars that South Korea has dropped in the past, I suppose, but they're still not fantastic in my opinion. But more on the Genesis. I feel like this brand is the biggest step forward for South Korea because the Genesis G70, for example, comes with that turbo V6 making 365 horsepower, which is 1 horsepower for every day of the year. And I personally think the design looks nice. This is a reasonable attempt at making a car to compete with a BMW 3 Series or an Audi A4 or something. And then they made the G80, which is a bit bigger and kind of competes with a 5 Series or an A6. Even though it's a new brand, I'm gonna give Genesis the crown for South Korea at the moment. I don't like the fucking Kia Soul. Mexico. The Vool 05 from Mexico is sweet. It looks like a car that you could only drive with your best friend because it's so tiny and the dudes look so funny sitting in it. The Mistretta MXT has such a cool looking interior and also looks like an Audi TT mixed with a 350Z and then swazzed up a little bit. I don't like the Zakua MX3 EV at all. I might even say I hate it. Vool is definitely the winner of Mexico. The United Arab Emirates. Holy fuck. These dudes are rich. Have you ever seen the W Motors Lykan Hypersport? This thing actually looks like a transformer. This country is just a GTA 5 lobby. What the fuck is the Devil 16? You want a little bit of car with that exhaust? I can't forget about the Zaruk Sand Racer either. I didn't even know cars like this existed outside of Hot Wheels. Also, they just gold plated a G-Wagon for the sake of it. I'm sure that amount of spending freedom is pretty nice. The Generelli Design 1 is another funny buddy car, but also badass. Out of all these cars from the United GTA 5 lobby, I've gotta give the win to the Devil, right? I mean, all of these cars are just so insane that I don't even know how to put one above the other. I probably don't even have to say this, but correct my opinion in the comments. Saudi Arabia. The Toyota Land Cruiser 300 from Saudi Arabia is cool. It looks like it could get over a lot of stuff. Also, the Isuzu D-Max Desert. This thing looks so badass. I love this thing. It kind of looks like it has a truck bed just for the sake of it. It's such a small truck bed that you couldn't fit anything in there, but you wouldn't want anything in there if you're jumping over sand dunes anyway. These are all huge cars. I guess they don't have to worry about gas prices. So I'll give Isuzu the winner for the D-Max because that thing looks awesome.
Next up is Africa and Loki. I didn't know they were cooking twin.
Kenya, starting off so strong with the Safari Rally Land Cruiser 70. I just love everything about it. Can you imagine pulling up to your bud's house in this shit? The Mobius 2 looks like a plastic G-Wagon, but I kind of like it. I don't know. I imagine it'd be practical in Kenya somehow. The Volkswagen Polo Vivo is locally built and looks like regular traffic, but has a little bit of potential, I guess. I'll give it to Toyota for the Safari Rally Land Cruiser 70. Morocco. Laraki wins Morocco. No argument needed. So I guess Nigeria knows a little bit of ball knowledge. They made this knockoff G-Wagon, which looks pretty cool in my opinion, and then the Puget 504, which is also cool looking. None of the other cars that Nigeria has made interest me in the slightest, so I'm gonna just say the knockoff G-Wagon brand is my favorite from Nigeria. South Africa. South Africa has some cool ones. We got the Piranha with the Z1. I think this thing looks pretty sweet. If you think this thing is ugly, you at least have to agree that this thing looks super aerodynamic. I really like the Ford Sierra XR8. Although it looks a little bit cross-eyed, it's got a very cool looking chassis and can be built up to look sweet. South Africa also produced a super nice and pretty rare BMW, the BMW 333i, which was only made between 1985 and 1986. It's just an E30 with an E28 engine, and it's kind of like the first BMW M Lite. If you want the M performance but not the M price tag, then you should go with the 333i. I like it. I'll give BMW the crown for South Africa. I think Sweden, Japan, and the UK have the coolest cars in the world. Let me know what you think in the comments though. So we all know Volvo is the safe bricks on the road. Literally one of the most rectangular wagons you could ever see other than the Cube car maybe. They're most likely driven by your local college professor or maybe a chiropractor. But did you know that Volvos can basically anything they want to? Volvos are extremely badass cars. They're so badass that even Gus Fring from Breaking Bad drives one of these. They're kind of chill looking on the outside, but pretty freaky on the inside. Like 100 years ago, Volvo got the reputation for being built like a tank. Say you bomb a Volvo dealership, the smoke will clear and the building will be gone. All the Volvos will be as spotless as they were when they came out of the factory. If you catch a Volvo in the wild, you kind of have to steer clear, because if you get in an accident with this car, you're gonna get mowed down. These cars will not sacrifice their driver for your safety. If you T-bone a Volvo, your car is probably going to get totaled, and theirs will not. If you see a Volvo flip over and roll towards you, you're probably going to get steamrolled, but that's obviously not a realistic scenario because a Volvo will never flip over. Volvos are just so badass that they will not break ever,
and they will not explode, and they will just sit exactly where they are.
If you've watched my other videos, then you should know that BMWs are the best inline-six company ever. Well, Volvo is basically the same, but for turbo inline-5 engines. Back in the 80s, they built the 240 Turbo. This car comes in almost any trim you can think of, and it was surprisingly fast for the time, but not quite as fast as the 850 TR or the 850R that they built in the 90s. These are basically the first Volvos that mogged hard. 250 horsepower in the 90s is absolutely fucked. The Mustang GT only had 215 horsepower. 250 horsepower in the 90s is like bringing a chainsaw to a pillow fight. First of all, turbo inline 5s might be the best sounding engines ever. Secondly, the video title does not lie. Volvos look awesome. Something about the geometry, the headlights, I don't know, they just look like the craziest sleepers of all time. Maybe that's what Volvo is, the craziest sleeper of all time. Volvos just subtly look so nice. They have so many nice features too. For example, let me just talk about the Volvo S60R and V70R for a minute. These are basically the same cars except the S60R is a sedan and the V70R is a wagon. I believe these came out in the early 2000s. This is the time that car manufacturers were snorting coke on the job. BMW put a V10 in a family sedan. The Audi RS6 C5 was insane. And of course we have the E55 AMG and the Jaguar XJR. These cars were just wild. Horsepower numbers that were unheard of at the time. But then we have the Volvo S60R and V70R. So these turbo inline 5 family cars packed a very solid and reliable 300 horsepower stock. They come with a Spaceball manual transmission, which is pretty badass. But more importantly, they were way overbuilt. Have you ever heard of stitched leather in the bottom of a car's door card? They also have suspension that you can change as you drive. Comfort's just for when you're going for a cruise, sports when you're driving through the canyons, and advanced is for when you're actually racing. Volvo claims that their suspension can keep the car in a horizontal attitude relative to the road. To be fair, I don't know what the else the car could be relative to the road, like perpendicular, but regardless, the suspension settings are really cool. These cars also came stock with Brembo brakes. They can basically stop on a dime. The leather seats are super comfortable too, and they have a rare trim called Nordicap, which is a blue leather interior, which is awesome. Anyway, I've basically sold you on the S60R V70R, right? Well, let me first put you on the Volvo S80. It's their 2007 V8 sedan. They're not terribly fast, but super comfortable and sound amazing. So the V8s in these cars were actually built by Yamaha. Yeah, the people who make pianos, lawnmowers, boat engines. They also made a Volvo V8 and it screams. I think stock it's about 315 horsepower, which is still pretty solid. It's not super fast, but it's very solid for a sedan. You can find these incredibly cheap on Facebook too, which is nice. But there's some drawbacks before you go buy one. So their all-wheel drive system, I don't really know what I think of it yet. It's super good all-wheel drive and you will not slip out. That being said, it's way front-wheel drive bias. And we know how I feel about front-wheel drive. Also, there's the steering. I've heard these cars have very loose steering and it's not very responsive. They have a really wide wheelbase, so you don't get a very tight turning radius either. And unfortunately, there's limited aftermarket support. There's extremely good aftermarket support, but sadly, there's just not very much of it. I've heard that IPD is a great company for aftermarket support. Anyway, that's where the cons end. I think one of the greatest things about these cars is how underground they are. As I said earlier, Volvos are the best sleepers. So what I'm getting to is that only old people drive these cars, right? Which means these cars are extremely well maintained and you don't need to worry about buying them secondhand. These cars are literally grandma owned and grandma driven. You don't usually see grandmas at street takeovers, right? They're also usually listed for under $10,000. Which my broke ass really fucks with. Next, I want to talk about the newer Volvos. I'll get back to the old ones in a minute, but I don't usually see people talking about the newer ones. Did you know that some of these cars are making about 450 horsepower stock? The Volvo S90, V90, and XC90 all make dumb power. Unfortunately, they're all hybrid cars, but I think 450 horsepower is pretty tempting, right? I think these cars would be very ideal daily drivers, or at least a great car to have for a road trip. Volvo really knows what they're doing when it comes to comfort. 58 miles a gallon is nothing to complain about either. Okay, back to the older Volvos. They're still great cars, they look great, they're comfortable, but they're very far from canyon carvers. Some people have built very impressive Volvos though. The Volvo 240 might be the perfect car for anyone. They are slow, but there's so many trim levels for this car and so many people have modified them into drift cars, off-roading cars, drag cars, race cars. They're kind of like the BMW E30 of Volvo in my opinion. Just a perfect blank canvas. The Volvo 240 is super slow, but fortunately has a very large engine bay, so you can toss something faster in there. While Volvo may not be the perfect car brand, they definitely have created some amazing cars. car. The safety of Volvos unfortunately has to take away from the fun a bit. The really safe all-wheel drive system or the wide turning radius. While Volvo has created the daily driver of all time, there's a chance that they haven't created the sports car you've been looking for your whole life. Volvo mogs, but only as much as safe family cars can mog. So you know how car manufacturers are just making shit? You gotta wonder what the best engine is for every number of cylinders. Starting off with one cylinder, the Predator 212cc. This thing is an icon. If you've ever ridden a mini bike, a go-kart, or a pressure washer, you're probably familiar with the Predator 212. With some mods, these engines can get you going like 70 miles an hour on a mini bike. 2 cylinders! 2-cylinder engines are cool because they can rev so high. Like Honda made this engine that could rev up to 13,000 RPM. I imagine the vibrations alone would be terrifying. These 2-cylinder engines aren't very common in cars, but BMW's bubble car came with a 2-cylinder option. Sounds like shit. The 3-cylinder GR Corolla engine is insane. 300 stock. That's like 100 horsepower per cylinder. They also sound really cool too. Engines with an uneven number of cylinders sound so good. I don't know why. This car is high-key a dream daily of mine. I know this is more about the GR Corolla than the engine, but this car comes in a 6-speed manual with all-wheel drive, and it's that 3-cylinder turbo engine. W Toyota once again. For the 4 bangers, the K20. Honda dropping the K20 was like Kanye dropping Graduation. In my opinion, this is peak 4-cylinder experience. Cheap, reliable, and fast. Bang! Also, it's pretty small, which means you can drop it in any car. The K20 came stock in cars like the Honda Civic Type R and the Integra Type R. Unfortunately, I don't usually love 4-cylinder exhaust notes. I think EJs sound okay sometimes, but I don't know. 4 bangers just usually sound pretty ass. I'm sure there's a scientific reason for like the vibrations or some bullshit. I don't know. It just sounds kind of bad. For the 5-cylinder engines, I can't tell you how badly I wanted to give this one to Volvo. It's gonna have to go to Audi though. As much as I despise Audi, purely fueled by a love for BMW, they can make a pretty badass 5-cylinder engine. They've been making 5-cylinder engines since the 80s, and they've been doing it well. They put these engines in quite a few cars, but people would recognize them mostly from the older Quattros or maybe the RS3. 400 horsepower stock coming from 5 cylinders is pretty cool. As I said earlier, the engines with an uneven number of cylinders sound so badass, and 5 cylinders just sounds that much cooler than 3. I think 5 cylinders is the best sounding number of cylinders you can have, maybe besides 10. Let me know what you think though, I'm undecided. 6 cylinders. For 6 cylinders, I want to make a few categories. 6 is a pretty universal number of cylinders to have because there's inline 6, flat 6, and V6. So I want to talk about the best of each of those categories. Porsche obviously makes the best flat 6. The GT2 RS is crazy.
700 horsepower pushed out of 6 cylinders.
0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds.
I feel like this might be the best of the best as far as 6-cylinder engines, but let me get into the rest so you can decide. As I've preached before, BMW is the king of inline 6. The S54 from the E46 M3 is going to be my shout for the best inline 6. The last high-revving, naturally aspirated M3 engine from BMW. 333 horsepower with a really smooth power curve is awesome, first of all, and it's reliable. It doesn't get much better than that, does it? I'd hate to end it there for inline 6s though. I'm gonna give the best turbo inline 6 to the 2JZ. I'm sorry to all the RB lovers, but the 2J is just a better boosted inline 6. As for V6s, this one might be a bit of a surprise. Fuck the GTR V6. Fuck the EcoBoost, of course. Guys, the V6 winner goes to the Honda J35. Not only does this engine make pretty good stock power, but it's super reliable too. 7 cylinders. Nothing! 8 cylinders. 8 cylinders might be the most badass number of cylinders you can have. Having a V8 engine just means you like cheap, dumb power. Chevy, Ford, and Chrysler all make the best American V8s that we all know and love. And I think the small block might have been the most influential engine out of all of the V8s. But none of these sound nearly as good as the Ferrari 136 or the BMW S65. Europeans always know how to make things sound great. I'll give Lexus the crown for luxury. The 1UZ FE was pretty freaking sweet, and I also want to give a shout to the BMW S65 for being the most stupidly engineered one, but 9 cylinders. These are just like the 7-cylinder engines, but better in the plane world. If you like planes, you'll love 9 cylinders.
El número 10.
The Lexus LFA sounds so fucking good. Definitely the V10 of all time. It's a 4.8 liter naturally aspirated V10 developed partially by Yamaha's music division. These bitches make pianos, so you know it's gonna sound really good. They basically tune the sound like they would tune one of their pianos. It has a very deep aggressive idle and a screaming top end. It performs well and all that, but this one wins best V10 because it just sounds so good. It's probably the best sounding car on this list, or in the world. 11 cylinders.
Fuck you!
12 cylinders. The V12 is Kodak Black's favorite engine. The Europeans knew exactly what they were doing. Lamborghini, Ferrari, Mercedes, they all made insanely good V12s. But I want to talk about a lesser known gem. The BMW, of course, S70. They built a V12 specifically for the McLaren F1, which made 627 horsepower in the 90s. And it was just an awesome engine overall. The Ferrari Colombo V12 was also insane. There's just too many V12s to talk about. They're all awesome. They sound cool as shit and they perform like 2 inline 6s next to each other. They're just so awesome. 13, 14, and 15 cylinders.
Fuck you again.
Actually, I don't know why a V14 doesn't exist, because it's like you could have 7 on each side and that would be kind of cool, but it just isn't real. 16 cylinders. So here we are, 16 whole fucking explosions happening in the engine. You want to know how that sounds?
Bang, 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 bang.
16 explosions happening in the engine. More cylinders, more power, right? Let me tell you about the Cadillac V16 from the 1930s. This thing was extremely luxurious at the time and made a very solid
165 horsepower.
That 3-cylinder engine that I mentioned earlier made 300 horsepower. So 13 more cylinders and it loses 140 horsepower? What the hell, Cadillac? And for the next 16-cylinder engine, I have to talk about the Bugatti. Way back when Bugatti dropped the W16 in their Bugatti Veyron, which is an 8-liter quad-turbo engine making 1,001 horsepower. I don't think anybody should own this amount of horsepower stock, but whatever, fuck it, Bugatti, let's do it. And then they stepped it up a notch, and the Chiron and Super Sport came with an 8-liter quad-turbo V16, W16 I mean.
That makes up to 1,600 horsepower.
1,600 horsepower. 100 horsepower per cylinder in a W16. That's the fastest street legal car ever. It's crazy. From Japan's Supras and Germany's BMWs to India's... Which country actually has the best cars? Italy. Yeah, Ferrari, Lamborghini, blah, blah. Fuck off. It's Fiat time. The Italian Mini Cooper. It's slow as crud, unless we're talking about corners. That's where these bad boys shine. The Fiat 500 is ugly as slow as but can take a turn like it's on rails. So yeah, obviously Fiat isn't the best brand from Italy. We've got Ferrari, of course, making bangers like the F40, the 250 GTO, the 812 Superfast, and just way too many other cars to list. But I'm not gonna give them the crown just yet because we can't forget about Pagani. I also can't forget about Alfa Romeo with the Italian BMWs. This country is a tough one. I'm gonna give it to Ferrari, even though they're an asshole brand for not letting people modify their cars. Still think they're the best cars that Italy has made. Canada's cars suck. I'm gonna give the best brand award to this thing because of the T-Rex. It's time for some freedom! The USA produces the most badass eagle-screeching, gun-shooting, gas-guzzling cars of all time. I'm not talking about the Cybertruck though. And dude, the US knows ball. Like the Cadillac CTS-V wagon, that shit's dope! Also, the 2005 Ford GT was an instant American classic. The Dodge Viper scares me, and Corvettes are pure badassery. Honestly, I didn't used to love Corvettes, but then I helped my friend work on a C4 and it made me understand the hype. Those cars are pretty freaking raw and sendy. Why the hell do American cars make you sit so far back though? When I sit in one, I feel like I could roll the window down and touch the back wheel. Maybe that's why they have such a bad reputation for handling, but a really good reputation for looking fucking awesome. Hell yeah, brother. I personally think the American car brand battle is between Ford and Chevy. That's coming from a non-American car enthusiast, so take that with a grain of salt. To ease your mind, I'll give the crown to Ford for now because the Raptor R is dope and the old F-250s are really cool, and the 3rd generation Ford Ranger.
Now let's focus on on Europe for a little bit, since they got some crazy shit you might not know about.
Turkey. Turkey dropped the TOG T10X, which looks super boring to me and has a terrible interior, but I just really like saying TOG. So that's definitely a point. What the f is an Andal Bokek? The United Kingdom. While they do have some interesting food choices and design choices when it comes to cars, the UK definitely has dropped some heat. When I say interesting design choices, I'm just talking about any car from Reliant and the City Rover. Yuck! Okay, that being said, the UK dropped McLaren, Aston Martin, Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, Lotus, and like a shit ton of other bangers. Rolls-Royce has the Phantom, of course, which is just peak luxury. And the Aston Martin with the DBS Superleggera. I love the brap noise that these things make. Jaguar dropped the Shaguar, which is Austin Powers' daily. I'm kidding, the Jaguar F-Type R is a mega Jag win. And Lotus made the Fox body, Carlton, which looks freaking cool. And oh yeah, the McLaren F1. Okay, out of these, the best brand from the UK is going to Mini. Germany. Germany. What a great country. The nature, the beer, the pretzels, it's all amazing. But all of those beautiful things mean absolutely nothing compared to their cars. And holy shit, these Germans can drive them however fast they want. It's just so unfair. So what are Germany's best cars? The Mercedes 190e is such a beautiful car. Mercedes actually crafted the most exquisite looking car when they made the 190e. Just look at this thing, right? As a BMW Glazer, I think these things look nicer than E30s. Also, fun fact about the 190e, some trims had self-leveling rear suspension, so that's just badass, I guess. This is gonna sound like an absolute generic cornball opinion, but the Porsche 911 GT3 RS is such a good car from Germany. I can't help but give it a spot in the top 3 best cars from Germany. You already know all about it since it's so popular, so I'll move on to my next pick. Okay, this one might come as a bit of a shock to you. No, I'm just messing with you. It's the BMW E46 M3. Beautiful looking car, raw driving experience, and such a cool engine. 333 horsepower from that straight 6, probably feels so good to drive. Guys, can you please spare a buck so I can get one of these, please? I'm gonna give Germany's best brand to Porsche. Porsche knows how to make some good damn cars.
Bonus round!
Brazil. Brazil also has a super cool and weird car community. They have so many front wheel drive cars that most people lift the back for better traction. I think it's cool that they have such a strong underground car community, even though they're kind of set back by having so many front wheel drive cars. That being said, I think the best cars that this country has ever produced are all rear wheel drive. The Chevrolet Opala SS. This thing just looks like any other American muscle car, but it's Brazilian, so I guess that's cool. The Volkswagen SP2 is way too cool looking. I really like the stance and the headlights. Chevy made the Puma GTB in Brazil, which is also awesome looking. I think it again looks like any other American muscle car, but with a little bit of Brazilian swaz. I'm gonna give Volkswagen the best brand award for Brazil. France. Oh, bonjour, je m'appelle Gassi. Yeah, the French don't really have Jacques shit to offer. I'm kidding, they made Bugatti. I've talked a lot about Bugattis in my best of every cylinder video because as you probably know, these cars have insane engines and they look bad freaking ass too. Also, Puget is super cool. They made some of the best hot hatches like the 205 GTI. Looks just like a French VW in my opinion and packs a pretty solid punch. And you cannot forget about Alpine. The A110 looks so mean. I don't know what to think of the fog lights on the newer models, but they look badass on the old one. They don't make dumb power, but they're such light cars that you don't really need all that. France, the best car from your country is not Renault, even though Renault made the Celio V6. They just fucked up so badly with the Avantime that I'm not even gonna consider them the best car brand. It's gonna be Bugatti, right? I don't know who else it would go to. Sweden! Yes! It's time for some beautiful brands to be mentioned. Whenever I think of hooning around in the snow, I think of Swedish cars. To all the Subaru dudes, spare your comment, I know you exist too. But anyway, these Swedish people know how to make some super safe and super cool looking cars. Although they up the Saab 7-9X, Saab also made some sweet cars. The 900 Turbo, for example, was a sweet ride. But Saab, I can't give you guys a crown, sadly. If your cars were that good, then maybe they'd still exist. But I'll toss you guys a participation award for that Aero wagon. Volvo can have my children. Volvo is just such a cool brand, and they make a shit ton of cool cars. The 850R, the V70R, the S60R, and of course, all the variations of the 240. Volvo just knows how to do it. But what do you think? Is Volvo above Koenigsegg? Dude, the Koenigsegg Agera RS is just like, what the fuck were these Swedish dudes snorting? Adderall? Fentanyl? Yeah, this This shit is just like peak. If you've got one of these, you might as well just drive it for a bit, then die. You finish a campaign. Obviously, Koenigsegg makes faster, cooler, and more expensive cars, but that's not a good reason to put it above Volvo in my opinion. I'm gonna toss Volvo the crown for Sweden, but feel free to argue with me in the comments because I don't know how nicely that decision sits with me.
Wow, we've been through a lot of major countries already, but we still haven't even touched on places like Japan or Egypt. Wait, what cars does Egypt even make?
Egypt. Yikes.
Wow, that was ass. Subscribe so you don't have to drive that car, twin.
Australia. Australia has some of the most weird and interesting car communities out of all of these countries, and it's awesome. Have you seen those burnout competitions? Ford Australia used to make the Ford Barra engine, which is basically an Australian 2J, and it is awesome. You can find this engine on some of the Ford Falcons and some variations of the Ford Territory. That's definitely a point for Ford. The Holden GTS makes way more power than it should, and the Holden Monaro CV8 looks so nice. Ah! The Proton Jumbuck sucks, so Proton definitely isn't getting the crown. Between Holden and Ford, I'm gonna give it to Holden just because I like the look of the CV8. Oh shit, but I also like the sound of the Barra engines. Maybe I'll just give the win to Ford because of the Capri Turbo being badass, so it's gonna go to Ford again. India. Well, these cars are definitely something, like the Riva G-Wiz. These dudes actually named a fucking car G-Wiz. Well, anyway, there's a few Indian bangers at least. Tata makes some cool cars like the Tata Safari. Looks kind of like a Land Cruiser in my opinion, so that's gonna give Tata the crown for Indian. Let me know if India made a better car than the Tata Safari because that's the coolest one in my opinion.
Now let's see what Asia has going on.
Vietnam. Unfortunately, Vietnam doesn't really have anything cool as far as cars go. A company called VinFast basically dominates the market, so I'll give them the crown. Japan. Japan is historically the most badass country as far as cars go, according to me. You know that one dude, Smokey something? That dude is so badass.
Man, I'm finna whip this hoe.
And all those other guys too. Japan has produced some insane cars like the Toyota Supra, the R34 Skyline, the Honda NSX. Japan is pretty hard to beat. But you know what else is hard to beat? Making a car shittier than the Mitsubishi Mirage. This thing definitely docks a point from Japan. Luckily Mitsubishi is cool otherwise. They made the Lancer Evo, the Eclipse, and some other fire shark. They made Subaru, which is cool, Toyota, which is a classic, Lexus, which is just Toyota but cooler, Mazda, Honda, Acura, Sushi, Nissan, Infiniti, mini trucks. One day I will own enough property to drive a mini truck on it and haul my mini bike on the mini truck. I love Japan. I'm gonna have to give the best brand from Japan to Toyota. Malaysia, the Proton Satria GTI is so sweet looking. The front lip, the headlights, the hatchbackness, the dual exhaust. This thing looks sweet, and people mod the shit out of these cars. The Bufori Geneva is exactly the car I would drive if I became an evil villain. Peruta makes cars so boring that I'm gonna give Proton the #1 spot because of the Satria GTI. China makes some weird cars. The Landwind X7 is just a Range Rover clone. It's such a weird car. A Chinese company called NIO makes a cool futuristic looking car called the EP9. I like the way it looks on the outside since it's just so over the top, but I don't like the interior at all. There's no reason to have all those screens. The BYD Seal looks boring as shit, and the Xpeng P7 also looks boring as shit, so I guess the winner by default is NIO. Indonesia. I messed with the Datsun Terrace, but otherwise I'm not interested in Indonesia's cars. So South Korea. The Kia boys would be nothing without South Korea. South Korea makes the absolute best NPC cars ever. Kias, Hyundais, and I guess Genesis is cool even though it's still a Hyundai. South Korea is trying to dig themselves out of their car history by dropping the Kia Stinger and the Hyundai N thingy. These cars are an upgrade from the horseshit cars that South Korea has dropped in the past, I suppose, but they're still not fantastic in my opinion. But more on the Genesis. I feel like this brand is the biggest step forward for South Korea because the Genesis G70, for example, comes with that turbo V6 making 365 horsepower, which is 1 horsepower for every day of the year. And I personally think the design looks nice. This is a reasonable attempt at making a car to compete with a BMW 3 Series or an Audi A4 or something. And then they made the G80, which is a bit bigger and kind of competes with a 5 Series or an A6. Even though it's a new brand, I'm gonna give Genesis the crown for South Korea at the moment. I don't like the fucking Kia Soul. Mexico. The Vool 05 from Mexico is sweet. It looks like a car that you could only drive with your best friend because it's so tiny and the dudes look so funny sitting in it. The Mistretta MXT has such a cool looking interior and also looks like an Audi TT mixed with a 350Z and then swazzed up a little bit. I don't like the Zakua MX3 EV at all. I might even say I hate it. Vul is definitely the winner of Mexico. The United Arab Emirates. Holy fuck. These dudes are rich. Have you ever seen the W Motors Lycan Hypersport? This thing actually looks like a transformer. This country is just a GTA 5 lobby. What the fuck is the Devil 16? You want a little bit of car with that exhaust? I can't forget about the Zaruk Sand Racer either. I didn't even know cars like this existed outside of Hot Wheels. Also, they just gold plated a G-Wagon for the sake of it. I'm sure that amount of spending freedom is pretty nice. The Generelli Design 1 is another funny buddy car, but also badass. Out of all these cars from the United GTA 5 lobby, I've gotta give the win to the Devil, right? I mean, all of these cars are just so insane that I don't even know how to put one above the other. I probably don't even have to say this, but correct my opinion in the comments. Saudi Arabia. The Toyota Land Cruiser 300 from Saudi Arabia is cool. It looks like it could get over a lot of stuff. Also, the Isuzu D-Max Desert. This thing looks so badass. I love this thing. It kind of looks like it has a truck bed just for the sake of it. It's such a small truck bed that you couldn't fit anything in there, but you wouldn't want anything in there if you're jumping over sand dunes anyway. These are all huge cars. I guess they don't have to worry about gas prices. So I'll give Isuzu the winner for the D-Max because that thing looks awesome.
Next up is Africa and Loki. I didn't know they were cooking twin.
Kenya, starting off so strong with the Safari Rally Land Cruiser 70. I just love everything about it. Can you imagine pulling up to your bud's house in this shit? The Mobius 2 looks like a plastic G-Wagon, but I kind of like it. I don't know. I imagine it'd be practical in Kenya somehow. The Volkswagen Polo Vivo is locally built and looks like regular traffic, but has a little bit of potential, I guess. I'll give it to Toyota for the Safari Rally Land Cruiser 70. Morocco. Laraki wins Morocco. No argument needed. So I guess Nigeria knows a little bit of ball knowledge. They made this knockoff G-Wagon, which looks pretty cool in my opinion, and then the Puget 504, which is also cool looking. None of the other cars that Nigeria has made interest me in the slightest, so I'm gonna just say the knockoff G-Wagon brand is my favorite from Nigeria. South Africa. South Africa has some cool ones. We got the Piranha with the Z1. I think this thing looks pretty sweet. If you think this thing is ugly, you at least have to agree that this thing looks super aerodynamic. I really like the Ford Sierra XR8. Although it looks a little bit cross-eyed, it's got a very cool looking chassis and can be built up to look sweet. South Africa also produced a super nice and pretty rare BMW, the BMW 333i, which was only made between 1985 and 1986. It's just an E30 with an E28 engine, and it's kind of like the first BMW M Lite. If you want the M performance but not the M price tag, then you should go with the 333i. I like it. I'll give BMW the crown for South Africa. I think Sweden, Japan, and the UK have the coolest cars in the world. Let me know what you think in the comments though.